I think that the one thing that Catholics need to learn, maybe more than anything, is how the Magisterium actually works. I think Sola Scriptura is a great starting point. Let's do it. Let's start with Sola Scriptura, and let's see what the Scriptura actually says. And it's, oh, we can't just have the Scripture alone, we need the church too. The Catholics that spend a lot of time online, those are the ones that always want to go to the Latin Mass, the Byzantine Rite, and all that.
I think people are desirous for tradition, beauty, and reverence.
Yeah.
And you know, if you don't give that to them, what do you expect them to do if they have a legitimate other option?
If I got elected Pope, I would fix the liturgy, and then I would excommunicate all of the public figures that dissent from the teachings of the church.
Because we all understand how things unravel on the liberal side, but we don't often take seriously how things are unraveling on the conservative side.
These false presuppositions that, you know, the Pope has taught heresy, Vatican II taught heresy. If what they're saying is true, Catholicism is false.
Thank you so much for watching Pints with Aquinas. Before we get into the interview, I'd like to ask you to please consider subscribing. Over 58% of people who watch this show regularly are still not subscribed, so please do it. It's a quick, free, easy way to support the channel. We really appreciate it. I was in Ukraine with Father Jason, and he was making the point that if you actually say, like, glory to Jesus Christ, or Christ is risen, because it was around Easter time, like, anyone in the street will give you the response that you would expect in an Eastern Catholic church.
That's beautiful.
I thought that's probably true. He's like, here, I'll show you. And he did it like several random people on the street.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's beautiful. That's what Catholic culture should look like.
Yeah, right.
Like in Mexico, when you say, que viva Cristo Rey.
Oh.
They're like, que viva.
Really?
Que viva la Virgen de Guadalupe. Que viva. So it's the same thing like in Mexico.
You speak Spanish?
I do, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. That's my first language.
Is it?
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
so if I butcher the English language, you know why? Because
You were born here, though.
I was born here, though. Yeah,
Your folks?
my folks are from Mexico.
Oh, that's great.
They are. Yeah, so I'm first generation here, so I speak both languages. Neither of them very well, but but look what I'm doing now. I'm on Pints with Aquinas, so I'm doing something right.
Do you ever do Spanish shows, or do you ever speak?
Yeah.
Evangelize, in Spanish?
Yeah, we've done Spanish content. I'm going to be doing, so Catholic Answers,
Yes.
they have their Spanish wing of what they do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff in Spanish with them. William Albrecht, he also speaks Spanish, and he even does debates in Spanish. And
See, God bless him.
he's
a champ. He's a machine.
He's a machine, I think is the best way to describe him. William Albrecht is fantastic. English, Spanish, German. He speaks all these languages, and he and I are going to be doing stuff in Spanish for Catholic Answers.
So I saw what they were doing on Catholic Answers. I saw that there was a separate YouTube channel. So is a lot of that professionally and AI dubbed, or?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Some of it is, because I think they got Jimmy Aiken and Trent Horn, and I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
they don't speak.
yeah, I don't think they
But
speak
looked,
Spanish.
if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong about that, but that's great. God bless them for doing that.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a massive need?
I think so, because what we're starting to see now, unfortunately, is especially in the most Catholic countries in the world, like Brazil, that they are now becoming very Pentecostal.
Yes.
And the Pentecostal church is going to overtake the Catholic church here pretty soon, I think, as a majority in Brazil, which is, that's Brazil. That's crazy. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Sometimes we look at these Catholic countries and we think that, these are Catholic countries, it's in their DNA. So you kind of just leave them alone. Sometimes you do need to preach to the choir. The choir does need to be preached to, because it's very easy. In a generation, it's very easy to lose the faith.
And I feel like we have really refined our apology. By the way, whenever I speak to you and you speak back to me, I feel like a girl, because your voice is so deep. And I'm like, I don't usually feel this. But you have a fantastic voice. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We've refined our apologetic skills so much because of champions like Carl Keating and Pat Madrid and Dr. Scott Hahn, Tim Staples, all these fellas, that I feel like, we've done a really good job at responding to Protestant objections. Right. And I feel like America was the perfect place to do that for multiple reasons. So now to be able to, as it were, export that knowledge and wisdom and work that those fellas put in to those who are being pulled out of the church into evangelical churches, that's, I think, necessary. I want to do something like that with Pints, but I don't know how to do it.
Let me know. I will help you with anything you need for that, okay?
Thank you.
Really, let me know.
Yeah.
Anything for you. You know what I love about the apologetics efforts that are happening in Mexico and in South America? The top apologists in Mexico, South America, and the Spanish-speaking countries, they're all priests. So it's the clergy that's doing it, you know? And I think that's really important. I love the fact that the top apologist in Mexico is a priest. I like that, you know? God bless all the lay people that do it as well, but I love seeing more priests doing it too, you know?
So I'm not in these circles, but do these priests get the word out through social media, YouTube?
Social media. Yeah. Padre Luis Toro is one.
Give us a couple.
Padre Luis Toro is the top guy.
Okay.
He's known all throughout the Spanish-speaking world. He's, you know, I cannot tell you how many people have asked me to do something with him, you know, Father Luis Toro, and he's incredible. He is just, what I've heard is that he has the entire Bible memorized, that he has it memorized like he can quote it verbatim the entire, that's what I've been told, that's what I've heard. And I've seen some of his videos, and he's like a genius, you know, incredible. And he's so personable, and he's so, you know, his spirit is so, he's excited. You can tell that he genuinely loves sharing the truth with people. So he's excellent. And I love that it's a clergyman that's doing it, a priest that's doing it. That's important. I agree. So it's funny because you brought up Patrick Madrid, and then you brought up that I make you feel like a girl. Yeah. Just a funny story, just because you brought it up. I met Patrick Madrid years ago, long before I was Voice of Reason, in Albuquerque. He was doing a speaking event at the Hispanic Cultural Center. It was at the Men Under Construction conference, and I bought a bunch of his books. I got him signed, and I had been listening to Patrick Madrid for years, since I was 16, listening to him. You know, I would drive to high school and I would listen to his morning show, you know, driving to school every morning. Huge fan of his, and I got his books. I get to the you know, there's a long line of people. He's talking to people. He's taking pictures. He's signing books. I finally get to the front. And I said, Patrick Madrid, I'm a huge fan of yours. Thank you for what you do. And he looks at me, and the first thing he says, he goes, hey, man, you have a good voice for radio. That's the first thing that he ever said to me. The only thing he's ever said to me. That's the only time I've interacted with him. And he said, you have a good voice for radio. And I was like, Patrick Madrid just told me I could be on the radio.
What year was this? Was this before podcasts were big?
This had to have been 2016, maybe?
Yes, this is his podcast. We're beginning to explode.
2016, yeah. You know, it's funny because in the Byzantine church, we just had, you know, the first Sunday of Lent is a Forgiveness Sunday. Yeah. And we were doing Forgiveness Sunday last week, and the bishop was there at my local Bishop Emeritus. And I go up to him and I say, have mercy on me, a sinner. And he looks at me and he goes, hey, you should be on the radio, brother. And he gives me a big hug, and then he just shooed me off to because he had a long line of people.
I didn't want a compliment. I asked for your prayers.
Yeah, he didn't even follow the script. He just said, hey, you should be on the radio. And he was.
Well, did you, when you were coming up with your name, Voice of Reason, was that part of it?
Yeah, that was part of it.
You have a very unique voice.
Thank you. Yeah, my whole life I've gotten it. My whole life.
Well, when did your voice break? Surely you weren't like this when you were 6.
I don't know. I'd have to ask the people that knew me. But I remember the very first time. That someone pointed out my voice. I was probably around 16 when someone said I sounded like Rocky.
Yeah.
And I remember the very first person that ever told me that. And it's probably been in the thousands of the people that have told me that. But I remember the very first person that ever said that to me.
You sound more like Rocky than Rocky does.
Oh, well, hey. I was a boxer too, so I think it's appropriate. So
because I think the first time I encountered you, you were on maybe Michael Lofton's show a couple of times.
Did you do a lot of
that stuff back in the day?
Yeah, nice. I was with Michael Lofton. That was incredible too, because when I first started as Voice of Reason, my only goal, I had no idea where I was going to take it, how it was going to be, but I always said I would love to work with Michael Lofton. We started in March. We're about to hit 2 years in like 3 days.
Why did you want to work with Michael Lofton?
Because I think that the one thing that Catholics need to learn, maybe more than anything, is how the Magisterium actually works. Because I feel like a lot of Catholics, they get themselves in trouble, or they make themselves confused because they don't know how the Magisterium works. So what I love so much about Michael Lofton was that he was the one that was actually breaking down what the Magisterium is, how it functions, how it works, how to read the Magisterium. And for me, that saved me from, I was going down that road where I would probably be Eastern Orthodox right now.
Really?
I would probably be, a Sedevacantist right now, maybe, because I was going down that road. And when I discovered, Michael Lofton, I learned how the Magisterium works. And I tell him, he knows, and I say it publicly, like, I think that Michael Lofton is doing work that is so invaluable, and I think he's so underappreciated because there are so many people, myself included, I'm the prime example of people that would have left the church had it not been for him. And I think that once you learn how the Magisterium actually works, everything else that's going on, all the craziness of the church, you can always know how to identify what's most important. So
Lofton's got a great book on orthodoxy. What's
Answering
it called?
Orthodoxy.
What's it called?
Answering Orthodoxy.
Answering Orthodoxy.
Answering Orthodoxy,
People should check that out if they are tempted to leave the Catholic faith, because I think that's a good resource.
Excellent book. His book, Eric Ibarra's book on the papacy.
Oh my gosh, I got it up there. It's ginormous.
Huge tome.
Did you watch the debate he did on my channel?
I did.
Did you understand any of it?
Yes, so
cool, good for you.
So I'm actually debating Ubi in May.
Oh my.
I'm going to be having a debate with him, yeah.
Look at that. Whereabouts?
In Las Vegas.
In Las
Vegas. And we're gonna make a big event out of it. We're doing it at the Our Lady of Wisdom, Italo-Greek Byzantine Catholic Church.
He was a nice guy.
Let me tell you something. I talked to him for the first time just a couple of weeks ago over Zoom. He's hilarious. He was making me laugh nonstop. He and I hit it off. Really nice guy. Really nice guy. He's treated me so well. He was very
polite. Yeah.
Very nice person.
I know the reason I asked you if you understood it wasn't because I doubt your intellectual capacity, but just that it got deep into historical weeds.
Right.
So what will your thesis be? What's the debate about?
So we actually discussed that. He said, I don't want our debate to end up like how my debate with Eric was, where it was so inside baseball that the people in the chat were just like, they've lost me, I don't know what's going on. And at that point, it's not really productive anymore. So the thesis that we'll be debating is we're going to put orthodoxy in the hot seat. And he has to prove that the Eastern Orthodox Communion is the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, which is a debate that I don't think I've seen yet. Usually it's the Catholic position that is in the hot seat, that we have to prove the papacy, we have to prove Vatican I from the first millennium, which is the debate that my very first ever formal debate was that topic against an Eastern Orthodox apologist. But with Ubi, and he thought it was a great idea too. I said, hey man, usually we're the ones in the hot seat to do something fresh and something a little new. Why don't we have you defend this? And he's like, that's a great idea.
Good for him. He's a bright guy.
Oh, he is. He's wicked smart.
Yeah.
Really nice. Such a gentleman. And I think that this is the beginning of a really good relationship that he and I can have, and we can have good dialogues. And
because I don't know if you know this, that was his first time revealing his face.
Yeah, it was his. Yeah.
So he wouldn't even let me buy his plane ticket for him. We reimbursed him after the fact because he didn't want me to know where he was coming from. And so I'm talking to Eric. I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, what's going? Like, who could he be that would be?
Right.
Anyway, but he was great.
Maybe he's Batman or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, great guy.
Tell me about your debate with James White. Because you did you see me shout you out?
I did.
You did.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. And
thank you.
I didn't expect you to do excellent, not because I had any doubts about you, but just because James is a seasoned debater. He's been doing this for 800 years. And he's made some Catholics, definitely not lately,
right?
But maybe in the 80s and 90s, look back on their heels, But you did really well. How did that come about? And tell us about the debate.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing it, because you shared the debate on your YouTube.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, it was so surreal. I'm like, Matt Fradd just shared one of my videos, and that was incredible. And I saw that you shouted me out when you were talking to Ruslan. And because you and Ruslan were talking about me.
That's right. Yeah.
Jonathan clipped it and he put it on my Instagram of you guys talking about me, and that was so surreal.
Oh, nice.
And Ruslan and I have gone on to become really good friends. He and I talk almost daily.
Wow.
Really, really good guy as well. But so the debate with Dr. White, that's one for the history books, because I took that debate on 3 weeks' notice. I had 3 weeks to prepare for it. Keith Nestor was the one that reached out to me on Instagram. Oh, he's amazing.
He's the best. Yeah.
Keith Nestor, I could talk about Keith Nestor all day.
We'll do that. We'll do 20 minutes on Keith Nestor after the James White debate talk.
Keith Nestor was special, really special.
Yeah.
He reached out to me on Instagram. It was in July, July of last year, and he just reached out to me. I had never even talked to him before, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey man, would you be interested in debating James White?" And I saw the message.
And did you think it was just in general, or did you think he
it was, I could tell that it was the way he phrased it. I was like, oh, this is going to happen if I say yes. So I said immediately yes. Wow. Didn't even think about it. I said yes. And he said, okay, cool. I'm going to shoot your information to the people that are going to set it up, and we'll make it happen. And I said, thank you. And then later that month, in late July, we had our famous debate, and I had a whole 3 weeks to prepare for it. And it's funny because I was the 5th or 6th guy. They had tried all these other guys. They had asked all these other guys to debate him. And for whatever reason, it wasn't working out. The schedules wouldn't work. People couldn't do it. So I was not the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, or 5th choice. I was like the 6th or 7th choice.
Well, you've got this gift where you're just very likable and open, and people trust you. And they should. They're right to. It's not a manipulative tactic. You're just kind, and you could tell that in that debate with James White.
Thank you. He hugged me.
Yeah, that's wild.
He hugged me. Yeah.
He's not usually like, he wasn't like that with Jimmy.
He's never done that before in any of his debates. And when I think about it, like, it kind of makes me a little, I don't know, emotional maybe, just because he said he loved me and he hugged me, and like it. I've been watching James White since I was a teenager. So I studied all of his debates when he was doing his thing in the 90s against, all the Catholics that he was debating back then. I watched, I studied, I learned, I took notes. I had been preparing for that debate for 10 years, which is why I was able to, I tell people, I took it on 3 weeks notice. And they're like, wow, you were able to do that with only 3 weeks of preparation. No, it wasn't 3 weeks of preparation. I had been preparing for it since I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. I first probably started listening to James White when I was like 18, I guess. So yeah, it was about 10 years.
For those at home, what was the debate about, and what do you think he did well? What surprised you? Why did you ultimately win?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. So the debate, it was actually 2 debates in one, because the thesis of the debate was Catholic authority versus sola scriptura. So we were actually having 2 debates. So he was trying to disprove Catholic authority and prove sola scriptura. I was trying to disprove sola scriptura and prove Catholic authority. When we set the debate up, I didn't want to do that thesis because I thought it was just a little too, it's really 2 debates. So I said, can we just pick one or the other? And the guy that was organizing was like, no, Dr. White would like to, spice it up. And I said, okay, I'm not in a position to be making the bands right now, and I can't let this opportunity pass me up. So I said, hey, I'll debate whatever he wants. He can pick anything that he wants and I'll do it. And so even though I wasn't really a big fan of the thesis, I did what I had to do. And it's really funny because the people that set the debate up, again, they had gone through like 5, 6 other guys, and everyone, for whatever reason, wasn't able to do it. So they didn't even know who I was. They were like, hey, look, man, we're only reaching out to you because Keith Nestor said that, he vouched for you. Yeah. And I could tell that they were very nervous, very, very nervous.
Why?
Because they thought that James White was going to decimate me.
Oh, was it a Catholic event?
Yeah, so it was a Catholic and a Protestant group that came together.
I see. So it was the Catholic group that were nervous.
And it was the Catholic side.
He seems nice, but we don't know if he can handle James White.
Yeah, the Catholic group was like, and I love them, and they're great guys out of Colorado.
No, it's a completely understandable reaction.
Oh, yeah, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. Yeah, Inferno Men is what they're called, and they're amazing. They're amazing.
One more time?
Inferno Men is what they're called. Gotcha. That's their Catholic apostolate.
God bless them.
They do great. They had a big conference back in November. They're going to be doing it again this November. They had all of these speakers come. I was part of it, and it was incredible. But anyway, going back to the debate and how it was set up, I could tell in my correspondence with them, I would talk to them over the phone. I actually wanted to debate Pope Francis. When they reached out to me and they said, what do you want to debate? And I said, tell Dr. White that I want to debate Pope Francis. Let's have a Pope Francis debate. That was what I proposed. And they were like, look, man, like, they were like, no. They were like, if that's he said, if that's the thesis, our guys are not going to back it, and we're just not going to do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
They didn't want me to debate Pope Francis.
Fair enough, because they don't want the Catholic position looking poor.
Right.
And they're afraid that you can't bring to the table. And maybe now they would, right? Maybe now they'd be open to it. But I think that's prudent, actually, on their part. Yeah,
I would say it's prudent, and they had no reason to trust me or believe in me, but I told them, I was like, I promise you guys, if you let me I was like, Dr. White's debated all of these things. He's never debated, and he's always saying that he always says, no Catholic apologist wants to touch Francis with a 10-foot pole.
Yep.
So here I am raising my hand. Let me do it. I will do it. Please let me do it. And they didn't want to do it. So I said, okay. So I said, whatever Dr. White wants to do, we'll do it. And then when I got there the night before for the debate, and I meet with everybody. And I could tell that they're just super nervous. The Catholics, they're like super nervous, like they're like sweating bullets. And we went to have dinner, and we're eating, and they're like, okay, they wanted to like make sure, you know, because they were so nervous. They're like, we need to hear your opening statement now, and we're going to cross-examine you, and we're gonna like they were
they
to make sure I was prepared.
inviting you to do this, or were they like, this is how it needs to go? You need it right now. That would have been awkward.
They invited me to do it, you know, and I knew on the way there they had called me and they said, hey man, when you get here, let's go over some stuff. Let's go over, you know, to make sure. And I'll never forget it. We're sitting there at the table. There's like, I don't know, like 10 guys. And they're like, all right, let's hear your opening statement. I gave them my opening statement and they just didn't. And then they're silent. And then finally one guy goes, he's like, what if James White says this? And I said, no, he's not going to say that. This is what he's going to say. He's going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, and then he's going to say this in response, and then I'm going to say this. And I literally went through the entire debate verbatim. The night before at the dinner table when we were eating at the little Mexican restaurant that was right next to the church where we did the debate. And I told him, I said, this is how it's going to go. I said, I trust me. I know, like I know what I'm doing. I know how it's going to go down. He's going to say this. He's going to bring up this. I'm going to say this. He's going to say this. I'm going to say this. And you know, they were trying to cross-examine me, and I was like, no, that's not good enough. Dr. White, that's not good enough for Dr. White. He's going to say this. It's stuff that they didn't even know. So the night before, they were like, I could tell, you know, by the time dinner was over, that they were a little more
at peace,
a little more relaxed. Yep. And then when the debate happened, as soon as Dr. White got up to speak and he started speaking, that was when I knew. I said
he did all those things you said.
Every single thing that I said he was going to say, he said. And I remember I wasn't even listening to him. I was just looking at the crowd, and I was looking at the Catholic guys in the group, and their jaws were on the floor.
Wow.
All, you know, people that came, that traveled from, you know, my people that traveled with me to the debate, they were there too, listening in. Jonathan was there, my good buddy Iram, who does Spanish apologetics content as well. And they were just looking at me with their eyes wide, mouths on the floor. They were just, you know, Dr. White was speaking, and they were looking at me because they were like, wow, like, how did he know what he was like? Because I've been watching Dr. White for so long, and the debate went exactly how I said it was going to go. And I told him he's going to bring up all of these things that don't even have anything to do with the thesis.
Like debates he's had in the 90s. That was unfair. I'm sorry. But it's true.
Yeah, but of course, bringing up Pope Francis, bringing up all of these things. And I had to make a decision. I said, you know, because normally when he does that against like Jimmy Akin or Trent Horn, they'll point it out. They'll say, you know, Dr. White is bringing up all these things that really don't have anything to do with the thesis. Mm-hmm. So let's ignore these things and let's go. And I couldn't resist the temptation when I got up there to do my first rebuttal. I was like, all right, I only got a short amount of time, so let's do this. So I answered every single thing that he said in his opening statement. I responded to all of it. And I responded to everything. And, you know, I remember just looking out at the audience, and they were just like, everyone was just like jaws on the floor as well. It was very surreal for me. I was paying more attention to the audience than I was even him. It was really weird. I responded to everything, and I challenged him. I said, Dr. White, I challenge you to show me one magisterial statement from Pope Francis that has ever contradicted anything that the Magisterium has promulgated in the last 2,000 years. And I told him, I said, I challenge you to do it, but you're not going to be able to do it because that doesn't exist. And he never brought it up again. So it was just so surreal. And the only reason that it went the way that it went is because that morning I went to confession, I received the Eucharist, and that was the only reason that it went that well. Just because of that. That was, you know, God having mercy on me and maybe feeling sorry for me, like, oh, this kid is over, he doesn't know what he's doing. And he allowed me to go and receive the grace from the sacraments. And that's the only reason that it went the way that it did. And then Dr. White hugged me, said that he loved me. We met up. He was in Albuquerque a couple of weeks later, and we had lunch. We're like friends. I like him. I think he likes me. And the crazy thing is that, you know, most of the people that were there watching the debate, they were Protestants. And when Dr. White would get up to speak, you know, I could tell who was Protestant and who wasn't Protestant. And the Protestants were, you know, shaking their heads at Dr. White, and then, you know. But then I went up to speak, and those very same people, at first they had their eyes wide open, jaws on the floor. And then the next time that I'd go up to speak, they started nodding their head with me. And they started. So it seemed like I was winning over his crowd. And I don't say it to brag or anything. I'm just saying, like, this is what I and what other people confirmed to me, with people that, you know, people that were telling me, they're like, Mo, did you feel the energy in the room? Like the Catholics were looking at the non-Catholics in the room too, and they were like, they agree with you. And all of them came up to talk to me afterwards. And,
how did that go? What kind of feedback did you get in person and online afterwards?
It was 99% positive. 99% positive. If you look at the comments on the video, so here's another story about it too. The reason that debate happened, we did it at a Reformed Baptist church in Colorado. The reason that debate happened was because the pastor of that church became Catholic and he left the church. So the new pastor that took his place, he had to kind of pick up the pieces of his church because the pastor left them for Catholicism.
Wow,
he became Catholic.
God bless him.
He had to pick up the pieces because the people were scandalized that their pastor left them to become Catholic. Mm-hmm. So he said, what I need to do is I need to get the biggest gun in town, James White, have him come here in front of my people, get any Catholic. He said, I don't care who it is, any Catholic, and just have James White destroy him in the debate, and that'll fix the problem, and nobody will think about leaving to Catholicism. They go through all of these guys who were much more capable than me, much more capable.
But in God's providence, you were chosen. They may not have done as well as you.
And it was me went up there, and the one word that everyone kept using, because everyone knew the backstory, everyone knew why the debate was taking place. It was basically they were just tossing me to the wolves. They wanted Dr. White to make an example out of me so that their people could be cool, right? Well, we did the debate. It went down the way that it went down, and what everyone was telling me after was the word that they used was it backfired, like terribly on them. It backfired really bad. Now the situation is worse, and so the crazy thing is that there's two versions of that debate online. Their version, the church's version, and then my version on my channel. In their version, they had to disable the comments because all of them, 99% of the comments were saying that I won, and they disabled the comments. And then they made it worse because then people were going to their other videos on their YouTube channel saying, why did you disable the comments on the James White Voice of Reason debate? And it was a big backlash. So they had to put out a statement. They put out a statement saying that, we disabled the comments because people were misbehaving in the comments. But, Jonathan was like, man, I was monitoring the comments, man. I saw no vitriolic comments whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I only saw just positive, everyone saying that you won. So we put out our video, and the comments are up on our video. And if you go and you read the comments, it's just, it's...
Did you agree to them beforehand that you would use the video? You would have rights to put it on your channel?
Yeah. We asked, and by the way, this church, amazing people. They treated me so well. They were so good to me. They were so loving. They were so easy to work with. They let Jonathan set up his cameras and everything, and we have our version. And Jonathan put the mic on James White. James White had like 3 or 4 mics on him. I had my mics on me. And it was just something, I don't think you could have scripted a better story or outcome of how it went. Just,
wow.
It was like a Rocky story. It was like, yeah. And when that happened, then that was when everyone started coming to me like, I want to interview you, let me talk to you. I want to, I saw these articles that were being put up by Catholic publications, David slays Goliath, stuff like that, or the real life Rocky story, in the Apologetics.
Low-hanging fruit, but okay.
Yeah, and it was just so surreal.
Oh, it's cool, man.
It was just so surreal. And I haven't really had the chance to talk about it fully like I am now, which is why I'm just vomiting all over you. I'm sorry.
This is really interesting.
Yeah, so it was special, and
Well, and you said you met up with James after this.
Yeah.
God bless him. Yeah. God bless him.
He's so good to me.
Yeah.
He treated me so well.
Yeah.
He treated me so well.
I remember listening to debates back in the 90s. I won't name names, but people who went up against James White, who I thought at times were kind of nasty.
Yeah.
It's one thing to like drive your point home forcefully, great. But sometimes it just felt a little cheap shots. You didn't do that, and I'm sure that's why I appreciated you.
And that's not because of me. That's just because, again, I received the Eucharist beforehand, and that was what I was the most worried about. I was worried because I like to argue, I like to fight, I like to, I like to fight dirty. Like deep down, like I know I like to fight dirty. And it was just because God had mercy on me and he didn't let me make a fool of myself, because my prayer is always, I said, please don't let me embarrass you. If I embarrass myself, fine, but don't let me embarrass you.
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, because it didn't sound like there was any hesitancy whatsoever on your part. But presumably there's got to be something in you as you're discerning whether to say yes or not is, I don't want to make the church look stupid.
That's always in my mind.
But as you say, given that you had 10 years of listening to and understanding his argumentation, you felt confident right away. No, I've got this,
I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it. And I wasn't nervous or anything leading up to it. It wasn't until...
It's a great way to learn a topic, isn't it? I used to do these little debates with Cameron Bertuzzi back in the day before he became Catholic, right? And we'd debate the Eucharist, we'd debate prayers to saints, and I'm not a debater, but he's a friend.
Right.
And so we felt like, okay, we can debate, but we trust each other. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't going to pin him to the wall and then try to make him look silly, and he wouldn't do that to me. And so that's really why I was open to it. But having those 2 or 3 weeks to do a deep dive into a topic, it's wonderful because nothing kind of burns it into your brain more than knowing I'm going to have to defend this publicly.
Right.
But then also how convicted I was of the things I was arguing for. I'm like, no, there's no way around this. The idea that the Eucharist is merely a symbol is just so novel, so unhistorical.
Right.
That I felt confident to debate it.
So Zwinglian.
Yeah, it is very Zwinglian.
Yeah.
So it was neat the other day to see Cameron Bertuzzi post something. He's like, go to adoration. That was his post.
I saw that.
What a man.
He's incredible. He's a
good dude.
He's really doing great work, especially lately with his work on Marian apparitions and his work on, things that, he's engaging other Protestants, and I think he's doing some of the best work of his career.
Yeah, he really is.
He's on a great run right now.
Yeah, I love that guy.
He's
and
incredible.
I don't think people realize, or they're not sympathetic enough as to just how traumatic it is to change from Protestant to Catholic, especially when you've got this large following and when your father-in-law is a Protestant pastor, as is his case.
Right.
It's a difficult thing. And I think as both Catholics and Protestants, we can be just too impatient with the other person. Like, hurry up, just change your mind. Why haven't you changed it yet? Why are you being so insincere?
Yeah.
So no, it's difficult.
Right.
And I think it's really cool that he's come out and announced that he's getting confirmed. I'm going to be a sponsor.
Are you?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So, it's provided I can go down there I hope I can for his confirmation, but it's really exciting.
Wow. God bless you. Hey, the Lord used you, my friend, to bring home.
Yeah, he can use anyone,
a heavy hitter to,
Isn't it funny? What was it? Ratzinger said that the Lord can use dull instruments. Thank God. Thank God.
My friend, Jonathan, he tells me this funny story about that he was talking to an Orthodox priest, and that the Orthodox priest said, "You're God's donkey." That's what he said to Jonathan. He's like, "You're God's donkey." And I remember we were on the phone when he was telling me this, and he was like, "Is he calling me a jackass?" Or it's like a compliment. And I'm like, I think it's both. He's calling you a jackass, but he's telling you that God can still use you when you're a jackass.
Yeah.
And no, I said, no, it's a great compliment, man. God used a donkey in the Old Testament to prophesy to.
And it's the beast upon which Christ rode into.
Yes, God's a donkey. Yeah. That's a beautiful compliment,
So, okay, when did you take your faith seriously? Because you were raised in a Hispanic household. Were your folks Catholic?
Yes.
And so was there a point where you intellectually and just with all your powers grasped onto Catholicism, or was it something you just grew up with accepting until a particular point when you started to have questions and doubts?
Yeah, I grew up going to the church. I grew up in church. I was an altar server, everything, typical Hispanic, upbringing. When I was 15 is when I really, really just went all in, and I started. It was like I was like a maniac, like a madman. Like all I wanted to do was read and study and learn, and it was an obsession. I was obsessed.
What got you into? What made you obsessed?
I don't know. I think that when you're that age, that's the age where you start asking all of the big questions.
Yep.
Why do I exist? Does God exist? Is God real? Why did He make me? What you ask all those big questions, and I feel like sometimes we'll go and try and get those questions answered. Other times we're just like, there are no answers to these questions, so I'll just live my life and try to make myself happy, and that's it. And I fell in the camp of, no, I need answers to this. I really need answers, so I just started.
Where did you go looking? Because obviously...
Everywhere.
All right, where?
Everywhere.
Like at your parish, online, books, what?
All of the above. I talked to a lot of Protestant pastors too. A lot of people are always surprised to hear that when I was around 15, 16, there was a time there where I almost became Protestant. Where I was,
Why?
I almost went, just because I had a lot of Protestant influence around me. So most of what I was learning, most of what I was, devouring, content and information was from the Protestant side, just because that was the influence that I had. My friends were Protestants, adults that I had in my life, like at school, were Protestants, and I would just talk to anybody, and I would ask them questions, and the knowledgeable Protestants would give me answers, and I'd kind of start there and just keep digging. So yeah, books, your videos, that was a little later though, but books, all of Patrick Madrid's books. Mm-hmm. I was listening to Catholic radio, listening to, I would put on the Protestant, what is it called, the TBN, Trinity Broadcast Network.
Not sure.
I'd put it on, and I would listen to all of the Protestant evangelists speak, and I'd listen to all the guys, all of them. I would get any information that I could from anybody. I even listened to Joel Osteen to see what he had to say. Joseph Prince, Creflo Dollar, TD Jakes, all those guys. I just wanted to learn everything. It was an obsession. It was a crazy obsession.
Were you falling in love with Christ more as this was taking place, or was it? Yes. It wasn't simply a head thing?
No, it was love. I think that love is, I always tell people too, because they always ask me, they say, how do I learn the faith? And I say, step one, fall in love. You have to fall in love. If you're not really in love, you'll maybe get so far, but then eventually you're going to tap out, and you're going to, you have to be in love. I was madly, deeply, passionately in love with our Lord, and
That's right.
with His Word and with His truth. And love makes you do crazy things. Love makes you do crazy things. So I always tell people, step number one, fall in love. Because if you fall in love, you're doing it for the right reasons, and that'll carry you for the rest of your life. Fall in love. That's the advice that I always give people when they ask me, how do I become an apologist, or how do I learn the faith, or how do I study better? I say, fall in love. Ask yourself, are you in love? Because if you're not in love, you're just going to be flirting.
That's good.
And if you're just flirting is only going to get you so far.
It's non-committal.
Yeah.
Don't
nature. I say, don't flirt with this. Don't flirt with our Lord. Marry Him.
Yeah.
Marry Him. And then you just go from there.
So you never had like off the rails, left Christianity, lived a wild life. Praise God for that.
No, thank God.
Okay, but then you said earlier that you could see yourself in Orthodoxy or Sedevacantism. Tell me how that happened, because I think that's very relatable to what a lot of people are going through right now. So how did that begin and end?
Again, just through my study, my research, voices that I was listening to. I think it was in 2016 when after Amoris Laetitia come out, that I, all of the people online were making a big deal about it, and I was listening to them, and they were making really good points, and I was like, wow, like how do I reconcile this? And just using your own logic and reason, the things that I was hearing, from these people saying, Pope Francis probably taught heresy, or Vatican II probably taught heresy. And I said, okay, if I'm exercising my logic and reason, if this is true, if Pope Francis is the Pope, and if Vatican II taught heresy, Catholicism is false. It's false. There's no way around it. If what they're saying is true, that's why I always tell, people on that side of the spectrum, I say, guys, I don't think you guys realize that the things that you are saying, if you take them to their logical conclusion, you have invalidated Catholicism. And that's why people are leaving. So many people that fall into that, I know so many Eastern Orthodox apologists that were the rad trad Catholics, and they try to hold on to it as long as they could, and they realized being a rad trad Catholic isn't good enough, because eventually they hit the wall that Catholicism is false, because they started from these false presuppositions that the Pope has taught heresy, Vatican II taught heresy, and they're actually the ones that are actually being consistent. Mm-hmm. The consistency of being a rad trad is that if that's true, Catholicism is false. So then they leave and they become Eastern Orthodox, or they do something else.
Yeah, I think it's two things. I think that's definitely one thing. When you are, it's interesting how these fellas went with the Benny Vacantism idea,
right?
Not realizing, where this ends. This cannot end with you remaining in the church.
Exactly.
Same thing with what you're talking about, and I agree that it leads people out of the church. I see the other end of the spectrum is this idea that we can't criticize the church or the leaders of the church in any capacity either. I think that sometimes gaslights people. Maybe not intentionally, so maybe gaslight is the wrong word. Yeah, but no, I agree with you. I sometimes listen to some of these voices online, and I'm like, it doesn't feel like they're trying to bring people into the church sometimes, not always.
No.
It feels like they're trying to evangelize people into traditional Catholicism and even make fun of the Novus Ordo and these sorts of things.
Man, the most beautiful mass that I've ever seen in my life was in Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska. The most beautiful mass that I've ever seen was a Novus Ordo that you could not tell apart from the Latin Mass.
Well, people can get very angry at that. I agree with you because I'm not enculturated into the Latin Mass. We had a priest come to our house who did just what you're saying. Like the Ad Orientem, it was all in Latin. It was glorious.
It was
so beautiful. And you're right. I couldn't have really told. If I went to a regular church and that happened, I wouldn't. I personally, I'm sure the trads would. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Yes, St. Peter Church in Omaha, Nebraska. If you're ever there in that area, go and check it out.
Yeah, come on.
It was speechless. And I went with Jonathan because we were on a trip. We were on a work trip in Nebraska, and we went to it, and we walked out, and he was like, I told him, I was like, hey, you know that's a Novus Ordo, right? And he was like, what? I was like, that was a Novus Ordo. And I was like, wow.
I cut you off. I'm sorry. You were talking.
I probably cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You were talking about, gravitating, listening to these voices, accusing the Holy Father of heresy, accusing church councils of heresy.
Right.
And that was beginning to, be convincing to you?
Yeah. Like, I didn't know how to reconcile certain things that Pope Francis was saying, certain things from Vatican. I didn't know how to reconcile Vatican II with things that were taught before.
Yep. And
then that was when Michael Lofton came in, and I started educating myself about how the Magisterium actually works. I think that's the one thing, for Catholics, the one thing to educate yourself on, to make sure that you're secure, that's more important, is learn how the church actually works, how the teaching church actually works. Yeah. And if you can do that, you're solid, and you'll be able to know how to...
I want to look up this, while you're talking, this book by Jimmy Akin. He's got an excellent book.
Teaching with Authority?
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great book. I'd recommend it.
That's a great book. I read that book as well. Teaching with Authority. Really learn how the Magisterium actually works, and when you know how it works, you'll know how to identify. You'll be able to learn how to identify what you can ignore. There are things that you actually can't ignore, and you'll be able to learn to identify what you can't ignore, but what isn't considered, a definitive teaching of the infallible Magisterium. You'll get to learn, the levels of authority that certain propositions come with, and when you know that, you're not going to be scandalized when
the Pope says something on an airplane.
When the Pope says something on an airplane, or and what's interesting is that every single thing that Vatican II teaches and says was said going all the way back to the patristic age. A lot of people don't know that. For example, St. John of Damascus, he said that Islam was a Christian heresy.
Oh.
That Muslims were considered Christians, but that it was a Christian heresy, and even going as far back as those saints of the 7th century, that's what they were saying. All the Syriac saints, they saw it as a Christian, and they even said they believe in the same God as us. Mm-hmm. And when Vatican II says it, everyone gets scandalized, not knowing that Pope Pius XII.
Yes,
Pope Pius XII said the same thing. Other popes that also said the exact same thing in the medieval times.
I want to just encourage everybody, because we have a lot of Protestant listeners.
Right.
It's cool. I'm so honored to have them.
Yeah.
I would, if you've heard this kind of stuff online, I'd beg you to just go pick up a document from the Second Vatican Council, like Gaudium et Spes, for example.
Yes.
It is beautiful.
Gorgeous.
I often think, I'm sure, clearly there are scholars who read it and take issue with things. Mm-hmm. Fine. But I think most people who complain about Vatican II haven't read the documents lately, or have not read them at all.
There you go.
They're beautiful.
That's the biggest problem. I always tell people, I said, hey, look, from now on, just one rule of thumb. I said,
and they were written by trads.
Yes.
They weren't written by anyone who celebrated the Novus Ordo.
Right.
They were only written by people who celebrate the traditional anthem.
Yes. And I told people, I said, hey, just go read them. Just go read them.
Yeah.
You read them, and I promise you, just go read them, and you're going to fall in love more.
Yeah.
you will fall in love. And then I say, go read everything that came before, because what you're going to see is that every single thing that you find in Vatican II was taught before. And as a matter of fact, the documents from Vatican II, they're quoting their sources. They're citing their sources and saying, oh, this pope in the medieval times said the exact same thing. St. John of Damascus said the exact same thing. So you can see that there is no rupture. It's a total continuity.
I think what people mean, obviously, is the rupture feels like it's not so much in the documents, but the lack of oversight and the implementation of Holy Mass and liturgies after.
And you know what? That's totally valid. That's fair. Because we know that Vatican II was not implemented well here in America, especially. Because the guy that was in charge of implementing Vatican II here in America, the cardinal that was in charge, he was actually the one that was in charge of the liturgy here in America, of implementing the Novus Ordo. He died right after the council, and they never replaced him. So it was basically all of the bishops that weren't even there that were trying to kind of figure out, what did the council mean by this? And we're still kind of feeling the effects of that. So that, we can concede that, absolutely. We can definitely concede that. But then when you go to St. Peter's Church in Omaha, Nebraska, and you see them celebrate the Novus Ordo, and then you actually read, the rubrics of the Novus Ordo, and you say, hey, they're actually doing what the rubrics say. They're doing what Pope Benedict XVI said to do. This is what it's supposed to be, So,
what do you see? This is all inside baseball that we're doing right now. We're talking about James White and the intricacies of the Novus Ordo. But what do you think the future is in America with the Novus Ordo and the Latin Mass? Not that you're a prophet or the son of a prophet, but have you thought about this? What does it look like in 25, 50 years?
It's a really good question. Honestly, I don't think we're going to see either of them. I think something's going to have to give in the Roman Rite, and I think they're going to have to do something where they, I don't know if I want to say promulgate something new. And when I say new, I mean, when we say promulgate something new, it's always fixing the errors or some sort of movement to actually, follow the rubrics, and but I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I've been really gratified at the masses I've been going to. Just this Sunday, I went to the cathedral in St. Augustine. Father Mack, I think his name was. What a guy. I'd never met him before, never heard him before. This young priest gets up. I said to him after Holy Mass, I said, Father, you preach like a man who believes in Jesus Christ. He says, I do. You could tell. It was so beautiful. The choir was beautiful, I don't know. I don't see a lot of young men who aren't kind of on board with a beautiful liturgy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we love beauty. Beauty's transcendental.
Yeah. And again, maybe it is beauty for beauty's sake, but the point ultimately is we want to have reverence for God.
Right.
He's not our buddy. He's our Lord who we come to worship.
Right, exactly, yeah. We're not hanging out with God.
No.
No, we're giving God everything that we have. That's what worship is. We're not there to hang out. We're there to remind ourselves that He's God and we're not.
So, all right. So then were you closer to Sedevacantism or Orthodoxy during this time? If you had to pick, where were you leaning?
If I had to pick, I would probably the Rad Trad, closer to Sedevacantism because I didn't know much about Orthodoxy. But now looking back, maybe if I had to look more into Orthodoxy, I probably would have gone Orthodox,
Oh, I see. So then it was Lofton's videos and other things that talked you off that ledge.
Yeah, I probably would have become a SSPX, which would have led me to Sedevacantism, which would have led me to Orthodoxy. That's probably how it would have been for me. But then again, just learning how the Magisterium works and learning how to distinguish between divine apostolic tradition, human apostolic tradition, ecclesial tradition, just knowing how to categorize things. Knowing how to categorize the things that we're looking at, the things that we're arguing about. First, you got to put them in their proper category. And once you know where the categories are and where each thing fits in the category, now you know what hill is the hill to die on, what can't be touched, what can be touched, what can change. How things have changed over the last 2,000 years. It's just good to know. The person with the most information is usually the one that makes the right decision. You have to have the right information, have the most knowledge, have wisdom, and you'll know what to do. And what I always see with people that end up leaving the church is that they just didn't have enough information. So they're making a choice based as best as they can with what they have, but what they had just wasn't enough to keep them in the church. And that's a shame because if you just had all of the information, I think you'll be solid,
Yeah. Okay. But obviously, the debate about whether one should abandon the Catholic Church for Eastern Orthodoxy is a different question to did Pope Francis or the Second Vatican Council or some other council after the Great Schism teach heresy. So, I mean, you still have to wrestle with the claims of Eastern Orthodoxy. And so when you were wrestling with them, were you wrestling with them as a convinced Catholic, or were you open to becoming Eastern Orthodox?
Well, what I always tell people is I'm open to anything. I think that the best way to move forward is to be open, always be open, because truth does not change. If Catholicism is true, if it is indeed objectively true, that's never going to change. So you can actually go through life with an open mind, which just means, take everything as it comes, look into it, the claims, see what the claims are, and see if it's credible or if it's not credible. And because truth doesn't change, I can be convinced and convicted in my Catholicism, and I can engage with Eastern Orthodoxy, Oriental Orthodoxy, the Assyrian Church of the East, all of the Protestant denominations. I could engage with Islam, atheism, whatever, and I could see them for their own merits and come to the conclusion that all of these worldviews are false because truth doesn't change. So, whenever I come into a debate, I tell people, I said, hey, I'm willing to be convinced by you. If you can prove me wrong and you can convince me of your position, I'll follow that. Always be open to it. But let me tell you why I take the position that I take. And that's because Catholicism, with all of this evidence, and I go through everything, I said, it's solid, it's true, and it really can't be shaken. And then, when I was looking into Orthodoxy, I started seeing all of the deficiencies within it too. So
like what? Like, break that open.
Sure,
what was your journey into looking to Orthodoxy and why you're ultimately not Orthodox?
Sure. So big picture, the Eastern Orthodox Communion or the Oriental Orthodox Communion or the Assyrian Church of the East, those communions are not the church of the first 400 years or the church of the first millennium. Because when you go into the first millennium, you see that what Vatican I taught about the papacy, you see in the first millennium, in the ecumenical councils. The councils of Ephesus, Constantinople III, and Nicaea II teach what Vatican I taught about the papacy. And then you actually see it in action with the Council of Chalcedon, with Pope Leo, even Constantinople II, which is a very controversial council, but it actually proves the Catholic position as well. These councils, 5 of the 7 ecumenical councils, either explicitly teach or demonstrate the papacy. Saints in the first millennium, East and West, for example, Saint Irenaeus of Lyon said that every Christian church in the world needs to be in agreement with the teachings of the Church of Rome, because the Church of Rome holds the apostolic faith. And so many other saints that said, the same thing over the first millennium. And the important thing is that they said that the authority of the Church of Rome was a divine authority, that was a divine mandate that was given to it by Jesus Christ. So basically, the saints of the first millennium taught that the papacy is a divine institution. And divine institutions cannot change and do not change because they come from Christ. What that means is that the papacy is a divine apostolic tradition. And divine apostolic traditions cannot be changed, cannot be tampered with, cannot be discarded, cannot be ignored, because they come from Jesus Christ. So when you look into the church of the first 400 years of the first millennium, you will see that the universal belief, the Catholic belief, was that the papacy came from Jesus. And you cannot deny anything that Jesus gave you. If Jesus wants you to have 7 sacraments, you got to have all 7. If Jesus wants one head for his church on earth, you got to have that one head. And that's what you find looking into the first millennium. But then even looking at how things are now, and you just look at like the history of like the Eastern churches, you see that because the universal teaching authority of Jesus Christ's church is tied with the Pope, with the Bishop of Rome. You see that the other churches don't have that universal authority. They don't have that magisterium, and that's why they cannot promulgate any teachings that are binding at the universal level that everyone agrees upon.
Yeah.
There's actually, being one means that you are united in matters of doctrine, governance, and worship. And you actually don't find that in the Orthodox communions. They're not one in matters of doctrine or governance, or even worship, like in the case of, I know it's kind of a low blow, but like Constantinople and Moscow. The question is, how do you identify the one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church? How do you identify it? Where do you identify it? How? Because we all agree that the church is visible. How do you identify the universal church? Catholics, we have an answer to that. But the Orthodox do not have an answer to that. And if they try to give an answer, there's no universal answer. They disagree with each other about how to identify the universal church. So it always comes down to an issue of just disunity, or not even having the capability of being able to solve these issues at the universal level.
That's a point I heard Michael Lofton make that I really liked. He said, you might criticize the Catholic Church for not doing something, but we all agree that it can bind at the universal level the faithful to, say, accept the assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary or something like that. So the difference is that we have that apparatus and the Orthodox don't, for the reasons you just specified.
Right. And then when you get into it, when you get into the weeds and you're actually involved in their communities and you just have conversations with their priests, with their bishops, as I've done, you see, disunity as well. Not that there isn't disunity on our side, there is. But the only problem is that their disunity, there's no way to solve it. That's the problem. If I'm a Greek Orthodox and I can't go receive the Eucharist at a Russian church, or I'm a Russian and I can't go receive at the Greek church, that means you're not in communion. So now I have to pick. If I'm an Eastern Orthodox, I have to pick. Do I go with the Greek church or with the Russian church? How do I identify which is it? Because they both can't be, because they're not in communion. The question is, who's in schism from who? You need to be able to identify what the Orthodox Church is and then who's in schism, and they can't do that. That's the huge problem. If you can't even identify the church, the visible church on earth, which they all agree that it is visible, but if you can't identify it, that's a big problem. That's a deal breaker.
Why? You said it's a low blow. Why is it? I don't think it's a low blow. I think it's a good modern illustration. But why do you say that?
I think it is a good modern illustration, but the reason that it feels like a low blow, and this is me saying this after just having conversations with other Orthodox, it's kind of like when they say, "Oh, Pope Francis said this," and they, we like, "Oh, that's a low blow."
It's like fresh and new.
So
they're reeling from it.
And the reason that it would come up as a low blow is because what we're seeing now with their communion, we've seen throughout the entire history of the church.
I want to tell you about some amazing coffee we were sent recently. It was from 7 Weeks Coffee, which is America's pro-life coffee company. They are on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, 1 cup of coffee at a time. The reason they're called 7 Weeks Coffee is because it's at 7 weeks that a baby is the size of a coffee bean. And it's the same time a heartbeat is clearly detected on an ultrasound. They donate 10% of every sale to support pregnancy care centers across the country. And they've raised over $900,000 for these centers and have saved thousands of lives. Now, let me tell you about the coffee, because, it's one thing to have a great mission, but is the coffee any good? And I can assure you that it is excellent. I had a cup this morning. My wife and I both love it. It's mold-free, pesticide-free, shade-grown, low-acid, it's organically farmed. It truly checks all the boxes. So go to 7weekscoffee.com and save 15% forever when you subscribe. Plus, exclusively for my listeners, use the promo code MATT for an extra 10% off your first order. That's a 25% total savings on your first order plus your free gift. Remember, your order will directly help support a network of over 1,000 pro-life organizations across the US. 7weekscoffee.com.
But the problem is, again, throughout the entire history of the church, we've always been able to identify who was Orthodox and who was heterodox, right? So it's kind of a low blow, but really not really, because, if they were able to identify who's Orthodox and who isn't, then it wouldn't be an issue. And the reason that it feels like a low blow to them is because, like for us, it's not a low blow. Like if an Orthodox or a Protestant brings up, you have your Sedevacantists, you have your SSPX, you have all of your, Catholics that don't even think Pope Francis is the Pope. For us, that's not a low blow, because and they're wrong. They're heterodox. They're not. We know how to identify the true church and people that have separated themselves from the church. But I think that because Orthodox don't have that, they're not able to do that. To them, it feels like a low blow, because it kind of shows, it's kind of like exposing their nakedness, But I mean, it's true. And if it's true, you can't just ignore it, because we're supposed to be in pursuit of the truth, of the whole truth, the fullness of truth. So...
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I think that you're probably on the same page as me, that it's important that we be grounded in the truth that we have accepted while being open to potential new evidences, but that doesn't mean we hold on to our current faith in a tentative way.
Right.
We've given ourselves over to it, and should someone present evidence that's contrary to mine that I do not respond to, that is not a good reason to go along with them.
Right.
We have to be very slow and dutiful, because just because someone can respond to you doesn't mean their answer is the last word, right?
Exactly.
And you said this with your friend John, who helps you run the channel. Roots of Orthodoxy is his channel. People should apparently check that out. You'd recommend it?
Yes, it's incredible. It is incredible.
But, I mean, maybe I'll have him on one day and he can tell me his story. I don't mean for you to speak for him, but I mean, this is, well, can you speak for him just briefly, and that he was open to Orthodoxy? Or you can't speak about that?
I would rather let him do it, because it's his journey, his channel.
The main point I was trying to bring up was, before this conversation, we were talking about telling people go slow. That's all I was doing.
And that's what I told him.
Yeah.
Because he and I, we've been best friends since 6 years old, and he was sincerely looking into Orthodoxy, and because I know him, and I know that he's honest. He is intellectually honest. He will go where the truth leads him, even if he doesn't like it. And because I know that about him, he's always been that way. I said, you have the perfect disposition to go looking elsewhere. If you're intellectually honest and you don't fool yourself, you don't let your heart fool yourself, and you're really just looking at, you're looking at this objectively, you have the freedom to look into everything. You have the freedom to look into everything. And I told him, I encouraged him, I said, do it. Do it. And I even told him, I said, this is what's going to happen. When you start looking into this, you're going to find this. And there was even times that he was like, I doubt it. And then a few months later, he'd be like, hey, man, you were kind of right about this. And then a few months after that, he'd come back and be like, hey, man, I kind of see what you mean. Like, I am seeing this now. See, when we have the truth on our side, we don't have to be threatened by anything else. When I say, you can be open-minded, what I mean is don't be threatened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't be threatened is what I mean. Is because if you know this is true, and it's objectively true, what that means is that nothing can ever contradict it. Nothing will ever objectively be able to contradict it. So have don't think like you have to be threatened by anything, and actually look into other things and just look at them for what they are.
Yeah.
Don't be threatened by them, because truth is truth. Truth doesn't change. So if you're sure that this is true, then it should not change. Mm-hmm. Then have that faith. Go in and look at these things, and you'll be able to always see where the defect is and why it's not true ultimately.
Yep.
So
people have different temperaments, and they're cool with different things. And I think it's wise at times, if people find themselves burnt out on online debates and back and forth, that it's perfectly okay to take a step back, pray, fast, read your scriptures, love your family.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, start with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Start with that. Start with the scriptures. Start with prayer, with fasting, with being a good son, a good husband, a good parent, a good friend, a good,
Yeah, and if this stuff is taking you away from that, or if it's stealing your peace, it's okay. Like, it's not a retreat.
Right.
Well, it is a retreat, but it's not a sort of cowardly retreat to move away from that which is just stealing your peace. Because, it used to be the case, if you wanted to listen to a debate, you could go to Catholic Answers and buy Tim Staples versus whatever, and you would listen to it. But now you could probably spend like 5 weeks nonstop, like 24 hours a day, just playing different Catholic debates.
Yeah, which I've done. And here's the thing: we always got to keep your eye on the ball. That's what I always say. So remember, God isn't expecting you to know about the acts of Constantinople III and the Pope Vigilius controversy and Pope Honorius. God isn't expecting you to know those things. But God is expecting you to be a good son. God is expecting you to be a good father, a good husband, a good friend, a good whatever. That's what your job is.
And often that's a lot more, it can be a lot more difficult, and it requires a lot more virtue, which is why we prefer just to throw ourselves into study.
Right.
Because it's too hard to be patient with my wife or my children or what have you.
I think you just convicted me.
Yeah.
I think you've just convicted me. Honestly, right here, live on air.
Well, it's true, isn't it? Wow. Imagine living with people who are annoying, just like you're annoying, and you got to put up with them. You got to put up with their mess. You got to put up with their annoying habits. You got to put up with their illnesses. That's hard.
Yeah.
And it requires a lot of you, and your own poverty is exposed when you're in the midst of that as you become impatient with them. But that's clearly where Christ is trying to meet you. Yeah. And I want no, don't meet me there. Meet me over here in this Jimmy Akin book or whatever, this council. And it isn't. I mean, of course, if you start thinking I'm saying either or, then you've misunderstood the point.
Absolutely.
It's not either or, but.
It's interesting because I'm not married. I don't have kids. Yeah. I spend most of my time with Jonathan because we travel all over the country and we do all these things. And Jonathan has never annoyed me ever annoyed me. He and I get along great, but I think I annoy him sometimes. and he's holier than me because he puts up with it. Like we've never had a fight, never had an argument, never anything, never. But I'm like, man, because I know me, and I know, that I can be kind of, and I'm like, man, this guy puts up with me, and I really appreciate it. And I'm like, and he's married with kids.
Is he? Yeah.
So maybe that's the, I hope that I'm holy enough to where I can do that, but I don't know.
Meekness is an interesting virtue that we don't often talk about anymore, but this idea of being gentle with others,
Right.
Yeah, you get into a monastery or you get into a family or you get into a parish and all of a sudden meekness is required. And it was easy when it wasn't required because you didn't have to do anything. You could just talk about how great and lofty that virtue was. But now when the house is a mess and your kid's sick and your wife's sick, you're like, all right, now is where I actually have to pray for this grace.
And I think that's when you really get to know yourself and know if you really do have those virtues, because I think meekness is easy with strangers.
Yeah.
I think it's easy
if you don't have to be with them for long.
It's easy to be polite to strangers.
Yeah.
It's very easy to go out into the world and go to the coffee shop around the corner or whatever it is and go in and be and smile and wave and be pleasant. That's very easy.
Yeah.
But when you come home to your family, when you come home to, that's when it's really on.
Especially when you start getting too comfortable with each other and you start becoming selfish and insisting upon your own way and tyrannizing others just so you can get what you want. It's amazing. I mean, you realize just how wretched you are. It's C.S. Lewis's line that a man doesn't know how wretched he is until he tries to be good. Something to that effect. Like if you have never actually really tried to be perfect,
right?
Then you're like, I get that. It'd be pretty easy. All right.
Yeah.
Just today. Don't lose your patience.
Do it when it's hard.
Be kind to people. Yeah.
Do it when it's hard. Do it when it really counts.
All right. So you've got this debate coming up in why Vegas?
Because that's where it's being hosted. Because that's where
Ubi.
Yeah, I don't know if that's public knowledge of where he lives. I don't know if he'll.
Yeah, well, he'll be there. How about that?
He'll be there, and it's being hosted at a church there. Father Nathan Simeon is hosting it. He has a relationship with Ubi, and I have a relationship with him. So we're going to Vegas to do it, and we're gonna see if we can sell the place out, and.
That's great.
Yeah.
My experience is, and this is probably true, I think every Christian communion has this contingent. There's like the loud contingent online of Catholics.
Right.
They just seem kind of like sometimes can be spiteful, and they've usually got their Crusader meme hat thing that they're wearing, and they don't have their real name, and they just lob insults at other people.
Yeah.
Ortho bros, something similar, right?
Yeah.
They tell me, I don't know, but I guess the Calvinists might have that contingent within them. I'm not saying all of them or any of them are like this all the time.
Cage stage Calvin, I think that's what they call it. The cage stage Calvin.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
But my broader point is when I meet Orthodox, I love them. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? The online world, what it gives us.
I've never had a negative experience ever in person.
Me neither. I once went to this Russian Orthodox church. Mm-hmm. I just ducked in there with my kids, say a few prayers, and I met this fella in the bookshop, and he wasn't being cheeky. He's like, "You guys still doing the Pope thing?"
Yeah. I've heard that story. Yeah,
we're still doing that. Okay.
That's very charming.
That was about as combative as it got.
That's charming.
But I had Jonathan, Pajot on. He was an absolute delight.
When I debated Dr. White, there was a few Eastern Orthodox that were in attendance.
Yeah.
And they came up to me. They were not even after the debate. It was during the intermission, right? And normally during the intermission, that's when you go to the locker room and you're talking to the coach and you're like, "What am I doing right?" I didn't have that opportunity because during intermission I got swarmed. So during like the 15 minutes or whatever it was that I had to try and regroup and get my notes together and all that, I was just talking to people, and there was a couple of Eastern Orthodox guys that came up to me and they told me like, "Hey man, we think that what you're doing an amazing job of defending us," is what they told me.
That's great.
And I was like, wow. And I kissed their hands and I said, "I love you and thank you for being here and thank you for your support." I have so much love for all of them, for all of the Orthodox, even for Protestants. I get so much love from everybody, and I've never had a negative experience ever. Ever had a negative experience with anybody.
Yeah,
in person. In person, yeah. And you know what? Even online, I don't think there might be a nasty comment here or there, but I feel like I feel like I'm spoiled. I feel like I've had it easy. I've never had like, because I see other guys, the vitriol that they have to put up with and the things that people say online about them.
Yeah.
I feel really spoiled. I don't know if God is just protecting me because he knows I don't know.
Don't know. Jurado he brought up this great point when I was talking to him. He said it's, how he deals with online criticism and things like this. And he said he realizes it's this generation's Doom. Now, you're younger than us, so you might not. Did you ever play Doom as a kid? Probably not.
No,
but there's video games where you go around shooting aliens and bad people.
Oh, okay.
And it feels great.
Yeah.
You know, and you feel like the boss. And you're this. Yeah. And it's like today's comment section, people often treat it like that.
A video game.
Yeah, it's just a video game where it's like, and once you realize that, you can be like, okay, whatever.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also don't know about you, but when people have their real name, then I'm a lot more open to hearing them. But if it's some fake name and it's just slurs, I don't care, even a little bit.
Yeah. I don't even.
But as you say, you haven't experienced that, so there you go.
So you know what's really funny is that so again, we're about to celebrate our 2-year anniversary here in like 2 or 3 days. On the 13th of this month is when we started Voice of Reason 2 years ago. We started on TikTok, and then in July of that year is when we got onto YouTube and Instagram. I still don't really know how to use like Jonathan does everything. Jonathan uploads everything. He does all the. I don't know how to use. Like I barely know how to like turn my phone on. So I think that's kind of like a grace. I think.
Maybe, I see.
Maybe God allowed me to do this because He knows that I'm not really interested in it.
Yeah.
Like people, and they like I've noticed like it kind of hurts people's feelings when they ask, or like, tell me about the future of Voice of Reason and where you'll see it going and what's going to happen. And I'm like, honestly, it could end tomorrow. God could take it away from me, and I don't really care.
Yeah.
God could take it away if He wanted to. Like this isn't me. This was not my idea. This was Jonathan's idea. He's the one that talked me into it. And if God is letting us do it, cool. And if God ever says, okay, we're done, cool. Like I really don't. Well,
what's your job? I mean, do you have a job?
This.
So you might care in that regard.
I do care in that regard, but like there's other things that I could do. I was perfectly fine and content and happy, 2 years ago, and I think I still would be if this were to end. So I think that the reason that maybe God has allowed us to do this and has allowed us to have the little bit of success that we've had so far is because maybe he maybe He knows, like, this guy isn't going to lose himself in, because I've never had personal social media myself ever in my life. I'm like the only person that I've ever known that I've never had an Instagram or Facebook or, even like back when MySpace was popular, I never had that.
Yeah.
I've never been on social media before. I just started for the first time ever 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry to hear that. Sorry for your loss.
I've never, so I don't pay attention to it. Because I'm old now. I'm about to be 30, so it's not something that usually that gets its hooks into you when you're like a teenager. I want
to affirm that you are old. You're right.
I'm old, brother.
Because I'm 42, and people are like, you're not old. I'm like, shut up. You're just ancient. I know I'm really old.
I'm old.
You're old too. No, 30's old. I had 100%.
I know I'm old. And that's cool.
That's beautiful. You've been here longer than those people. That makes you better than them. It's something to rejoice in. I think it's great.
So social media and stuff like that never got its hooks in me when it really could get its hooks in me. So now I'm able to do it and not really worry about it. Yeah. I don't really look at comments. I don't have time to look at all those comments. I don't really, I kind of just check it to see if I got any important messages,
Yeah, that's great.
I check it to see if your sister has reached out to me to ask me about what I just saw on TV on,
We got to talk about this. All right. So my sister and you are chatting regularly apparently about WWE.
We're like best friends.
It's amazing.
Isn't it crazy? I've been watching you for years. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you out, but I've been watching you for years, Matt Fradd. I have watched you for years, and I've learned so much from you, and I've been so edified by your content. And I remember, me and Jonathan talking about, hey, what if one day I get to be on with Matt Fradd on Pints with Aquinas? And I'm like,
I'm honored to have you.
Yeah. Oh, the honor is all mine. It's like a boyhood dream. I'm telling you. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it'd be cool. And then it's your sister that gets in contact with me, and we become like best friends. And
tell him how that happened.
So she posted, and it wasn't that long ago.
No.
That she posted you and her, or you were in Australia, right?
No, I was in Pittsburgh. She took me to a wrestling.
Oh, okay,
match.
okay. I don't know why I was thinking.
She's huge into wrestling.
I think she might have posted it because you were recently in Australia, weren't you? Didn't you go back there recently?
I did, but I don't know when she posted what she posted. But she took me to this. What do you call it? Like a B grade, C grade wrestling event.
An independent wrestling event.
There you go. That sounds way better.
Yeah.
Independent wrestling event, and I went because I love my sister and she's great, and I love to hang out with her. But it was actually really enjoyable. Yeah. It was shocking just how talented these people were at what they did.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember looking around at the crowd at this like Pittsburgh little thing. I went, no one here voted for Kamala. Literally nobody. But if you remember who that was. But no, it was actually really fun. And then I think she posted it online. And then what happened?
I saw it and I left a comment on it. And I don't even remember what I said. And then she commented back and she's like, who are your top 5? And I was like, all right, here we go. So I gave her my top 5 of my guys that I like now. And then the rest is history, I guess. And I don't remember. I think she had sent me something. And I think she told me, she's like, hey, I hope you get on my brother's show soon. And I'm like, oh, that'd be great. I'm like, if you can make that happen, that'd be cool. And she's like, oh, talk to Melanie. And I'm like, oh. So I'm like, okay. So I was thinking that I would have like the back door in to get you to,
I didn't even know that happened.
Yeah,
I don't know that conversation happened.
Yeah, she was like, I think she was like, hey, I'm a big fan of yours. You're doing great things. You should be on my brother's show.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, are you kidding me? I'd love to. Like, that's like a goal of mine. And then we just started talking about wrestling and and that's it.
That's
like,
funny.
so
when I was a kid, it was Legion of Doom.
Yep.
That was my tag team. I don't know if you know who they were.
Oh, of course.
Ultimate Warrior. Obviously, he was phenomenal. Hulk Hogan, I guess, but it was really Ultimate Warrior and Legion of Doom were my favorite. But I do not like watching women wrestle at all.
Me neither.
I resent it.
I'm not a fan.
But I liked it. You know, Big Boss Man. I don't know. Do they still have those real over the top characters?
Not anymore. No, it's a lot more sports based now.
I don't like that
because I think it was like a reflection of the time. Like in the 80s. It was like the era of like kind of like the campy action hero movies. Like you had Sylvester Stallone and Schwarzenegger, and that was like the culture. That was the big explosions, the over the top, the
guys
gimmicks.
with snakes and all the that's what I love.
Jake the Snake Roberts.
Don't you wish that was back a little bit, or no? Because you're a different generation, and it wouldn't land.
I don't think it would land because wrestling is so interesting. Pro wrestling is so interesting because it's an art form. A lot of people don't realize it's actually an art form. Like it's art. Like when you see professional wrestling done well, like exceptionally well, it's like it's like watching a movie, but it's like poetry in motion. Like it's artistic, it's storytelling, it's drama, it's theater.
Yeah.
It's good versus evil. It's like Shakespearean, and
wow.
You're
gonna have to give me one wrestling match to watch.
I could
to try to change my mind. I don't know.
I could give you.
I'm not against it. I just don't think it could hold my attention.
Yeah, and it's not for everybody.
Which is not its
fault.
Yeah,
it's not for everybody. But if you,
I've never heard that summary though. What you just said there about the reflection of the 80s and the movies at the time.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
that's why I don't see today the same kind of gimmicks, which I thought was kind of fun at least.
Yeah, and when you look back at it in like nostalgia, you're like, I love that stuff because it's nostalgic.
But if it happened today, it might.
And then if it happened today, it wouldn't land. And we got to remember, it's still a business, so they have to do things that are popular, at a popular level that the masses are going to flock to. Right now is a very interesting time because right now, the wrestling business is probably hotter than it's probably ever been, maybe, like in its history, and its 130-year history, whatever it is. It's like on fire right now. They're making, WWE is making like a crazy amount of money.
Who?
WWE, the company, they're making crazy profits.
How do you think, with the rise of UFC over the last however long, how has that, do you think, if you had to guess, influenced wrestling?
I think that there has been an influence.
And how people watch it, what they want from it.
Yeah, because like I said, now it's more sports based. Well, at the same time, you can still see it and see, oh, this is theater, this is Shakespeare, but it's sports based. So you're not going to see the Big Boss Man. You're not going to see
Jake the Snake Roberts.
You're not going to see Jake the Snake Roberts with the. Although I think that gimmick could work today because coming out with the snake, like that's just like that's cool, and that's like what is it? Mind games, intimidation. But being that it's more sports based because like professional wrestling as a business, it has to evolve and it has to adapt to what the culture is and what it wants and what the culture is looking for. So it is more sports based, I think, because of the influence of UFC. But it's like just recently there was a big Shakespeare, where probably one of the best good guys ever in the history of the pro wrestling business became a bad guy.
Hang on, what do you mean the big Shakespeare? What does that mean?
Shakespeare is like
I know
like
who he is,
the drama.
Oh, okay. So
like
there's a lot of drama.
The storyline of it, the story.
And so a good guy?
John Cena, who was one of the greatest they could call him a baby face. He's a good guy. He's a hero. He was Superman. By the way, I saw your Superman figure that you have in the bathroom. That's cool.
Thank you.
So Superman just became a bad guy after being a good guy.
And how did they set that up to make you believe it and hate him?
Okay,
Let's do it.
So
Educate me.
John Cena was a good guy. I'm talking like what Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior were to you, just like that, and maybe even more so for like my generation, because he was a good guy a lot longer than Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was a good guy from 84 to 96. John Cena was a good guy from 2004 to literally like last week. And he was the top good guy. He was the biggest star that they've had, since the 90s.
Forgive me. I've got a lot of questions that I need to interject as we go along so I can understand this. So I understand how they made Hulk Hogan a hero because he was pro-America against the communists or whatever. But and those in the Middle East, he would fight that Sergeant Slaughter.
Slaughter, yeah.
How did they make John Sr. a good guy without all those gimmicks and then explain how just recently they were able to convince everybody that they hate him?
So John Cena is his character really from like 2005 until just recently. He was the guy that would always hold on to his morals. He was the moral person. He was all about the children. He was about being a good role model. He was about all the classic morals of a good guy. Integrity, loyalty, respect, hard work, honor. Giving it your best try, and even if his motto was never give up. And there was a whole generation of kids that like they took that to heart, and he always said, never give up, work hard, try your best, don't give in to the evil of the world, and it was like visceral, like we believed him, because we all know that pro wrestling is a show. We know that it's a show, but the people within that show, like you believe that they're for real. Like Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is one of the biggest professional wrestlers of all time, but he was also a former UFC World Heavyweight Champion. So you can go to a wrestling show and you can say, I know that this is all the show, but Brock Lesnar, he's for real. It's like that with John Cena. Like that's who he really is in real life, in person. And so a whole generation of kids, myself included, grew up with that. A hero, a pop culture icon. And the thing is that over the last 20 years, more than 20 years now, 22 years, whatever it was, whatever his run was, he's had so many opportunities to become the bad guy. And part of his story is that it's so easy to become the bad guy because it feels so good. And sometimes you have the right to become the bad guy, but don't. You have to stay the good guy because you want to be good. You don't want to be the bad guy.
Okay.
And that's been his story for over 20 years because they wanted him to be the bad guy. There are times when the fans, they want you to be the bad guy. They want you to fight dirty.
But presumably WWE is not yet ready to make the switch because clearly they're the ones writing the script here.
They're the ones that tell the story.
All right.
But the story is also based on the reaction of the audience. So when the audience reacts in a way, they kind of plan accordingly.
Yep.
So that's the beauty of the art form, is that it's interactive.
Okay.
And if the audience rejects something, then they'll have to switch on the fly. Or if the audience accepts it, they'll write it as long as they can, right? It's very interactive in that sense, so it's like the audience, the crowd, they're the ones that can kind of dictate how they want the story to go. When you go to the movie, it doesn't matter how loud you cheer or scream or chant or whatever, like the movie is the movie, it's done.
Or a play.
Yeah. But with the theater that is professional wrestling, the audience actually is able to influence what happens. And for a long time, the audience the adults in the audience wanted John Cena to be the bad guy, but the kids loved him, and they were his hero. And John Cena was always about the children. He never always about the children and being the upright, the moral person, and always be good, and loyalty, respect, honor, virtue, all those things. And he was able to withstand all of those calls for him to
bring this right.
Yeah,
move around. Yeah.
He was able to withstand all of these calls for him to be the bad guy, and it was incorporated into his story. And he never became the bad guy up until like about 2 weeks ago.
All right,
when happened? He finally became the bad guy. So John Cena, he's in his final year. He's about to retire. And right now, the top good guy is a guy named Cody Rhodes, and he's the world champion. And he's like the John Cena of today. He's beloved he might even be bigger than Cena right now at this day and time.
Cody Rhodes.
All right, Rhodes. And they call him he's like the classic American hard work, and just like John Cena was. And he's beloved just like John Cena was, for over 20 years. And John Cena turned on him. They're going to have a match at the biggest pro wrestling show that happens every year. That's him. Cody Rhodes and they're going to have a match. They're going to main event WrestleMania, which is the biggest show of the year. And all your audience is probably like, man, I didn't know Voice of Reason was such a nerd, but I'm a huge nerd.
This is great.
And they're going to main event, in front of 80,000 people, whatever it is. And
Truthfully is a groundbreaking Catholic AI app built to help you know, live, and defend the Catholic faith with clarity and confidence. Whether you're navigating a tough conversation, deepening your understanding, or looking for daily spiritual guidance, Truthfully is your companion on the journey. It's like if ChatGPT went through OCIA, got baptized, and made it its mission to proclaim the truth of the Catholic Church. But Truthfully is more than just a Q&A tool. It's formation in your pocket. Take audio courses on topics like the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Eucharist, Purgatory, and why the Catholic Church is the one founded by Jesus Christ. Each course is designed to be accessible, engaging, and deeply rooted in the teachings of the Church. You'll also receive daily audio reflections, short, powerful meditations to help you grow in prayer and stay grounded in your spiritual life. Already downloaded by thousands of people worldwide, Truthfully is transforming the way we learn, share, and live our faith. One question, one course, and one prayer at a time. Start your 7-day free trial today. Download Truthfully on the App Store. Coming soon to Android.
They thought it was going to be good guy versus good guy. Cody Rhodes, today's John Cena versus the John Cena of this
and so
last
people
generation.
Couldn't tell who they were going to root for.
They couldn't tell, so John Cena said, "I'm going to tell you who to root for," and he turned on him. And there's actually a video of it. John Cena and The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. The Rock was like the biggest star in Hollywood because he came from pro wrestling and he's back in pro wrestling and he's
I didn't know he was back in it.
He's a character on TV. I think the most watched social media moment of WWE was John Cena turning to a bad guy and turning on Cody Rhodes and aligning with The Rock.
Can you tell me how this happened?
So what happened was John Cena won a match to earn the right to fight to wrestle Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania for the belt, for the World Heavyweight Championship. Cody Rhodes came out after John Cena won his match to congratulate him, and they hugged in the ring. There's a big hug in the ring, and they was like, yo, good, our two favorite guys are going to get to have a great, classic good guy versus good guy match. And then The Rock came out because The Rock was involved in a story with Cody Rhodes where The Rock is the bad guy and he's trying to get Cody Rhodes to become the bad guy, right? So it was kind of like what John Cena was going through back in like 2012, 2013, where The Rock is trying to get Cody Rhodes to be the bad guy. And Cody Rhodes says, no, I'm not going to be the bad guy, right? The Rock was trying to get Cody Rhodes to align with him. And he said, no, I am not going to follow you. I'm going to have a match with my hero, John Cena, and we're going to tear the house down at WrestleMania, and we're going to do it honorably. And then John Cena turns on him
in the ring, right?
In the ring, he turned on him. They hugged. They had a big hug, and then John Cena, some of the best acting he's ever done in his life, where his face just drops and he's looking at The Rock, and The Rock is in the ring watching them hug. And they're hugging, and John Cena looks at The Rock and like gives him like the wink, and like the evil face just comes out. And The Rock goes like this, and he does the throat slit. So John Cena lets Cody go, and he kicks him in the nuts. Just low blows him, just kicks him. And then John Cena, The Rock, and Travis Scott, who was also in the ring, they just, you can watch the video of it.
We will.
They pummeled him, make him bleed, like for real, like he was bleeding for real. They hit him like they were hitting him for real. They were whipping him with a weight belt. It was classic Shakespeare. Beautiful storytelling, the drama, the way that the crowd was reacting, little kids in the crowd crying.
Oh my god.
Crying because their hero just turned on their other hero. Even grown men that were shocked. Grown men that grew up with Cena that were shocked. So it was amazing storytelling. Beautiful storytelling. And everyone played their part so well. John Cena's excellent, Cody Rhodes is excellent, The Rock is The Rock, he's excellent. The way that they shot it, the camera work, the Rock, doing the throat slit, Cena's face while he was hugging Cody and his kicking him and then blooding him up, and just it was beautiful. It was Shakespeare.
Wow. Okay. I got a Shakespeare professor who would take issue with that, but we'll accept it.
I watched that episode, by the way. Excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Aaron Verbands, something Polish.
Right.
Okay, so when's WrestleMania?
WrestleMania is in April. I think April 20th, and it's 2 nights.
Okay, so at this point, as someone who doesn't know anything about wrestling, it would seem that John Cena has to lose because this is his. I know, but that's what I was about to get to, right?
Yeah.
But you can't give the audience what they expect. But then maybe you do.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. No one expected that John Cena in his final year, he was on his farewell tour. And he said, I want to just come back for one final year to because John Cena does acting now too. He's in movies. But he said, I want to give you guys all of me for one final year, just as a thank you for the 20, because he's been doing this since 2002.
Unreal.
So for the 23 years that you guys have been supporting me, I want to come back and give you one last run. And
yeah. So how do they? What do you expect from this wrestling match between Rhodes and Cena?
I honestly think that John Cena might win. That he might win, and the bad guy is going to prevail at the biggest show. And
it's because I think, well, obviously Rhodes will win because he's the good guy, which leads me to think, oh, therefore they won't let it happen. So John Cena will win because also it's his last WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, so then so Rhodes is probably going to win. Like, I don't know.
So you have no idea. And that's one of the things about what's so great about the product. The WWE product right now is that it's so unpredictable. Usually you can predict it. You know how things are going to go. Mm-hmm. Right now it's the most unpredictable that it's ever been while still being so good. Yeah. The quality is so high and you really don't know where it's going to go. Like they're really at levels now, new heights of storytelling. It's really good. The characters are so fleshed out. Everyone is over, meaning everyone is popular. The audience cares about all of them.
Whoa.
Because there's guys that can, the audience doesn't really care about this guy. So, but everyone right now, the cheers are deafening,
Have you been to a WWE?
Oh, I have, yeah. I've been to events before. It's a blast.
Wow.
It is a blast, yeah.
I remember The Undertaker.
Yeah.
I don't know his real name. But
Mark Calloway is his name.
Okay. And he was wrestling for what felt like 50 years. I mean, it wasn't that long. But when did he stop?
He stopped in 2000. He had his last match in 2021, I think, or 2022.
Wasn't he wrestling in the 80s? Or no?
He was wrestling in the 80s. He went to WWE in 1990. November of 1990 was when he made his debut.
What was he in his 50s or 60s when he finished?
In his late 50s, I think.
Come on.
Yeah, so from 1990 all the way to 2022, I think was his last match.
His body must be destroyed.
Yeah, and he was incredible too as a performer. And he was the one guy that could have those like gimmicks, like the cheesy gimmicks from the 80s.
Yeah, with the urn.
Yeah, that shouldn't have worked today. It shouldn't have worked, but because he did it so well back when it did work, he was able to maintain it and carry it on. Okay. And they went with it. The audience always accepted him. They never rejected it because it's the Undertaker. Like it's but as a performer, just as an athlete, as a performer, the things that he could do in the ring were incredible.
I don't know if Emma told you this, and I won't reveal this person's name. Yeah. But a woman from the WWE wrote to me over Instagram. Don't say who it is if you know, because I don't want to expose her.
She wrote to me too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And she said she converted, or she's converting. Yeah, praise God.
God bless him.
And I think I'm like, well, let's have you on the show. Right after I've criticized female wrestlers. And I don't think she's ready to do that. But that's amazing that someone from the WWE is watching our channels and is being influenced towards Catholicism. Isn't that wild?
So she and her husband, who's also a professional wrestler, me and him are like really good friends too. And we talk like at least weekly as well. And
they're not ready to come out. Am I right?
I don't know. I don't know. But I told him, I was like, hey, you should maybe think about getting on with Matt Fradd. Because that would be huge. He's that would be huge.
But it's funny because she wrote to me and my sister was like freaking out.
Really?
To me, it was like someone from Kroger who works in the checkout sent me an email. I'm like, that's cool. I'd love to. Who is she? Yeah. I didn't get it.
Yeah, when they reached out to me as well.
I just mean somebody I don't know.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. Like, you don't, right.
Another face, I don't know.
Because I've been watching, especially her husband, I had been watching his career since he was in Japan. And I was watching him wrestle in Japan and everything.
Be careful, we're giving it away now.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to deduce.
Oh, man. Oh, well.
Do you remember that sumo wrestler back in the 80s? And he had that stink face move? That was unfortunate.
Rikishi.
Is that it?
From the 90s. I think it's Rikishi.
Okay.
His sons are wrestling right now too, and they're on top.
I want to get into sumo wrestling. Not me personally. I want to get into watching.
I said you're gonna have to put on a couple $100 if you. That's funny.
I really would like. That seems like a fun thing to watch.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest thing you're into?
The weirdest thing that I'm into. That's a good question.
I mean, most people would go, "Okay, wrestling. I'll settle for that."
Wrestling
Not that it's weird, but just when they know your persona, they wouldn't necessarily expect you.
The weirdest thing that I'm into. That's a really good question.
I want to be into sumo wrestling. I want to get into that.
What is the weirdest thing that I'm into? Huh. I don't know what would be the weirdest thing that I'm into. I don't know.
I need more weird things to be into, I think. I've shared this before, so it's not a surprise, but there's a great couple of games from the 90s, these point-click adventure games called Tex Murphy Interactive Games.
Uh-huh.
And me and my son, Peter, he's 10 years old, we'll occasionally, we don't do it much, but we sat down recently, we played Under a Killing Moon, is what the name is. It was just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I buy the novels that were written in conjunction with the game.
Right.
That I hope the author will never watch this. You know, they're not like great. It's not like literature. Right. It's just whatever. Yeah. But because I have such nostalgia from the 90s, I love it. So that's something I'm weird that I guess that I'm into.
Yeah. That's a good question. You've stopped me. I don't know what I'm into because I feel like I'm boring.
What would you like to get into? Even if you can't see yourself getting into it, what would be a cool thing to say that you're into? So I just said mine, sumo wrestling.
Of a weird thing that I'd like to get into?
I just offended everybody who's into sumo wrestling. Is anyone okay? Now I need to. I'm going to get into it right now on the show. Sumo wrestling. Like, is that still? I know it's still a thing, but is it huge somewhere? Like, is anyone?
I don't know.
In any corner of America, being like, "Oh my gosh, you don't know?"
Huh?
With that American accent.
I don't know about any weird things that I'm into, but there's something that I'm really into that I think you'll appreciate.
Okay.
I brought some things for you.
Japanese style of... Okay, yep, we're going to read that
I brought something for you. You and I are cut from the same cloth.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's nothing that I can, give you.
This is an Ultimate Warrior? Oh,
here,
come on. Do you smoke?
Oh, my goodness. Are you kidding me? I'm a big...
That is so nice of you.
I'm a big cigar guy.
Would you smoke one with me now?
Of course.
That's what I was... nice.
So my audience knows that...
Thank you very much.
My dream, and my audience has known, even before I was Voice of Reason, my dream was always to have a cigar with Matt Fradd.
Really?
That was one of my dreams. Right. I hope you like those. I hope you...
Now, I have a lighter?
Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah, I do. I do have a lighter.
Yeah, I'm a big cigar guy.
Really?
Big cigar guy. So...
There you go. That's awesome.
So there's two people in this world that I wanted to have a cigar. Go ahead. Yeah. There are two people in this world that it was my dream to have a cigar with. One is Matt Fradd. I'm about to live out my dream right now with Matt Fradd. The next guy is Michael Knowles. Yeah. Those are the two guys that I want to have a cigar with.
That's so nice.
So I'm about to accomplish one of my dreams right here, and my audience knows. So my audience that's watching this, they're probably so happy for me right now because I've talked about it quite a bit.
Do you want a bit of whiskey or just the water's good?
I'm good with just. I don't drink actually.
Okay.
I'm a cigar smoker, but I'm not a drinker. So, but thank you very much.
When did you get into cigars?
I got into cigars, I think in 2018.
That's very nice of you. Thank you.
No, of course, yeah.
2018?
2018, okay. Yeah. And I got some other things for you too, but this is just to start out. Yeah, I hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
What kind of cigars do you like? Do you have?
I like more, if I'm going to get like usually I buy Cubans, but if I buy, because I like the more Connecticut type.
Yeah.
So Maduros, we'll see how I can stomach it. But I love a Maduro. Sometimes it'll do a number on me, but let's see.
Okay.
And is this one of your favorites for some reason? Or?
Yes, I have quite a few favorites. I have a few brands that I really like, that I really enjoy.
So how did you get in? So I got into cigars because of my father-in-law. Mm-hmm. He's a big cigar smoker, and I just thought it was kind of cool. So I tried it a couple of times, and I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. But I didn't enjoy it for the right reasons. I was enjoying it because it just seemed like a kind of cool thing to do.
Right.
I remember once early on in our marriage, my wife went away somewhere, so I thought, I'll go get a cigar.
Yeah.
Didn't really know what I was doing, got a cigar, sat out on the back porch in San Diego, and I got so sick.
Were you really?
I was on my hands and knees just trying not to vomit. But since then, the reason, you probably heard me say this, but the reason I love cigars is it's a forced way to sit down and slow down. It's very meditative. You light up a cigar like this will take like an hour and a half to smoke.
Right.
It's just What about you? How'd you get into it?
The way that I got into cigars was my oldest friend from preschool. When he had his daughter, he became a father, and when he had his daughter, we were all there when she was born, and his father, my friend's father, brought us out to the parking lot after she was born.
Yep.
And when the excitement was kind of settling down, he took us to the parking lot of the hospital, and he passed out cigars to everyone and said, in honor of my first grandchild being born, I want to have a cigar with everyone here that was here to witness this. So that was when I had my first cigar. And then I didn't smoke again for a while. And then, sometime down the line, I just picked it back up. And I got to the point where I was smoking about 1 or 2 a day for a while.
Yeah, that's what I do. I've already had a cigar today.
Have you?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And how do you, are you like me? Do you have to deal with people getting upset with you online about it? Or?
I have, but again, I don't really look at the comments. Yeah. So I did a video recently with a friend of mine, also from New Mexico, who's also a content creator. We had cigars together. And there was a couple of comments like, "Oh, I expected more from you, Alex."
You're like, well, that was your first
Christian
issue.
Shouldn't be smoking.
Yeah,
but I've smoked cigars before on lives and things like that. So
it's delicious. Thank you.
You enjoying it?
I have a brand new Pints with Aquinas cigar dropping. We sold out real quick.
Oh yeah,
that's the box up there. I'll open it. There's a gorgeous image of. Do you see it on that section?
Yeah. With your logo on it?
We're about to release them online. So I will send you a few, and you can
thank you
tell
so
me
much.
what you think. They're really good quality.
Thank you. Yeah. So you're enjoying it? Did I do good? Did I pick good ones?
It's delightful. It's delightful.
Okay, very good. Very good. I'm living my dream right now.
Yeah, thanks. The Mayflower cigar is great too.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to try them.
Yeah.
So I'm about to cross you off my list, and then just Michael Knowles is all I got left.
He would love that,
and I can die a happy man.
Yeah. So what are you doing? Hoping for marriage, or looking at the priesthood, or neither right now, or what?
Honestly, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately too. I feel like I'm being called to just remain single. I don't know so I was in the seminary for a while and discerned out of it. And then a lot of, Byzantine priests that I know, they say, hey man, you get married and then you come and, you can be a Byzantine priest, but I don't think I'm called to that either. And then when I look at just marriage by itself, I don't think I'm called to that either. So I don't know. And then the funny thing about discernment is that you kind of like ask yourself, like, why do I feel this way? Is it like what you brought up earlier? You're like, is it because I know it's going to be hard and maybe I don't, maybe I don't feel like I'm up for the challenge or whatever it is. Am I not mature enough to do the married thing or I don't know. But you know how like people that are not called to the priesthood and you bring it up to them, you say, hey, maybe you'll be a priest. And they're like, oh no, like they just know that's not the thing. When you bring up marriage to me, it's kind of the same. I kind of have the same reaction. Like, no, I just know that's not my thing. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm dead wrong. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you're introspective in a good sense. And it sounds like you're processing this maybe with a spiritual father.
Yeah.
So I think if you're doing both of those things and you're at peace, that might be a good place to remain.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I think for me, I was afraid of marriage because I was afraid of being a bad husband. So that's one of the main reasons, motivating factors I would say that I love Jesus Christ and I want to serve him and love him and read his word and proclaim the gospel. I wanted to do that ever since I was 17. But I think a significant motivating factor for me being a priest was I was afraid I'd be a bad husband, bad lover, bad father, wouldn't be able to provide for my kids. I got no idea how to do anything. And I had to realize that choosing the priesthood because I'm afraid of something is not a good thing. So I had to really look into that. And then obviously I became a husband. Well, I'm thrilled.
Let me tell you a story, and God bless you. That's great when we find our vocation, and you that's beautiful. When I was in the seminary, and I discerned out of it, and it was my spiritual advisor then in the seminary who kind of helped me through the process, and he said, he told me, he said, you know what? He said, I think there's something else out there for you that God wants you to do. He said, I'm not sure what it is, but go and figure that out, go and find it. And he says, and if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, the door's always open for you to come back here. So he left the door open for me. But this is what he told me, and I'll never forget it. And it kind of like, I don't know. He told me, he said, I don't know if you're being called to be a priest or not, but I know for sure that God is not calling you to marriage. That's what he told me. He said, if you were...
Why did he say that?
I don't know. He said, if you get married, I think you're going to be miserable. That's what he told me.
Okay. But I wonder, it would be great to know what he meant by that. Because that could either be, not that he would have ever meant it this way, but that could be an insult. Because you could see someone being, and this isn't your case, I'm not saying it is, but you could see someone just being immature.
Right.
Or you could see someone being selfish. Like, no, if you were married, you'd hate it because you'd have to care for somebody else. You'd have to be interested in other people, and you're not like that.
Right.
I'm sure that's not what he meant. But I wonder what that means in a in a positive sense, if you know what I mean.
I have no idea. Maybe he just meant, like, I don't think you're being called to marriage.
Yeah. Do you know other people? This is an interesting conversation because I've met people who've been consecrated, like Janet Smith. Dr. Janet Smith is one of them, and there's others who've been single and have made the decision to sort of consecrate themselves to the Lord.
Right.
Yes. Do you think, or have you thought about that? Like, I guess I wonder. Sometimes you'll see this debate online, and I haven't gone into it much, so I don't know. But is just perpetual singleness, where I'm not making a commitment either to remaining chaste for the kingdom. Right. Or getting married, is that a viable option for an individual? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to go, okay, I'm single for now, and I'm open to marriage, I'm open to priesthood, but at some point, do you have to choose, or do you think it's permissible just to, just remain in that state as a bachelor, essentially?
Yeah, right. That's a good question. I'm not sure, because maybe it could be that I'm being called to consecrate myself as a single person, but I don't know. That's when I honestly I don't know. They always say, do what scares you. But I don't think I'm afraid of.
Yeah, that's not always a great advice.
Because I'm not afraid of what I'm doing now. I'm not afraid of debating James White or talking to any. I'm not afraid of that, and I do it, and it's bearing a lot of fruit. It's edifying other people. I wouldn't be afraid of being a priest. I don't think I'm afraid of getting married. I don't think any of those things scare me. I think I have like the normal, like you said, like, maybe you doubt yourself, would I be a good husband, a good lover, a good father? I think that's normal for all men to think that way, but it's not, if I think that way, it wouldn't be something that would stop me from trying. And one of the reasons that I would feel like maybe it's not God's will for me is because I have tried, I have, sucked that out, to be married and it never works.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, even when everything is going well and it should work and it's supposed to work, for some reason it just doesn't work.
Do you have siblings?
I have one sister.
Is she married?
No, she's 21, about to turn 22.
Nice.
And she just goes to school. She's not married either.
You said you're from New Mexico, so I got to ask. I mean, I'll just put my cards on the table. I thought that Breaking Bad was a bloody excellent series, and I remember meeting a fella who had just started it, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I was in your shoes and I could watch this from scratch. Yeah. Obviously, it has morally problematic content in it. Obviously, I wouldn't just, advise that everybody check it out. But a really well-written story. And I asked you, is Albuquerque, does it look like Breaking Bad? You said yes. What a beautiful part of America, huh?
Thank you. It is very beautiful.
I know I've been there before, but I don't remember when.
It's very beautiful, and that's what we're known for is Breaking Bad more than anything now, I think.
Was that annoying in the beginning for people?
I've never watched the show. Mm-hmm. I'm from there. I'm from Albuquerque, and I've never watched it.
All right, well.
Want to know something funny, though?
Yeah.
I'm in it.
Okay. Lead with that. What? You're gonna have to keep lighting that, I think.
I got nervous that I'm having my cigar with one of my heroes, so I didn't light it right. This has never happened to me before. That's why I keep staring at it. I'm like,
I don't want to tell someone how to light the cigar, especially when they.
Fradd probably thinks I'm a noob or something.
You are in Breaking Bad. That's gonna be the name of this video. Breaking Bad actor.
So, so it's funny. So here's something that I haven't said yet. Before I was Voice of Reason, I was a professional actor. I was a working actor. Because Hollywood kind of moved out to New Mexico, that's where they make a lot of movies now. So I was an actor so when I left seminary in 2018, that November, I started acting. And it's interesting because before I went to seminary, I had an opportunity to start acting that kind of just fell into my lap. And I said, sorry, I can't, I'm going to seminary. But they said, well, if anything changes, let us know, and we'd love to try it. And then when I just turned out of seminary, what's interesting is that the priest that was my spiritual director in seminary, he because I was living with it was a religious order, and I was living with the community of priests, and I had a special relationship with each priest. We each had like our own thing. There was one priest that we bonded over sports. Another priest that we bonded over food. Another priest that we bonded over music. And my spiritual director, he and I bonded over films, over movies. And he and I, we would watch Spanish films together, Shakespeare. You know what I mean? Everything always goes back to Shakespeare. And we'd bond over it. And he knew, because he knew everything about me, because he was my spiritual director in the seminary. He knew about the offer that I had for acting. And he and I really bonded over it because he was a big arts guy himself. And he loved the craft of acting and storytelling and art. And when I left the seminary, he was like, hey, you should really try that. He said, I think you could do it. He said, I really think you could do it. Like, go and give it a shot. Because he said, I would hate for you to get ordained, get an assignment, and then somewhere down the line, you start to have regret, and then you regret that you became a priest because you didn't try this when you had an opportunity. He said, not many people have opportunities like this. He said, go. He said, I think you should go and try it. So when I left seminary, I went and I tried it, and right off the bat, I started working, and it just, it kind of just took off. And I was working from 2018 to 2020, and what happened in 2020 that cut my career short was the pandemic. So when the pandemic happened, everybody lost work. I stopped working. They were requiring the jab. I didn't get it. I had the virus, and I was really bad. It almost killed me. I had it really bad. And they were like, we can't take you back unless you have it. So that kind of bothered me, so I just didn't go back.
So tell me about what do you mean when you say you're in Breaking Bad?
So I started acting in 2018. My theater mom is what I call her. Her name is Karen Jones Meadows, who I love dearly. She was the one that got me into acting. Started doing theater, started doing auditions, and I started doing movies, television shows. And because, Breaking Bad is made in Albuquerque, it was Breaking Bad, and then they have the spinoff, what is it called? Better Call Saul. Yeah. Better Call Saul is what I'm in. Call Saul. Okay. Better Call Saul is what, yeah. So I did that.
And what do you mean you did that? What role did you play in that?
I played one of the mafioso bodyguards of the. So the funny thing is, I've never seen either show.
What?
I've never seen either show. I've never watched it. So I'm on TV and I've never seen it.
Why wouldn't you watch it?
Because I like to read books. I don't know.
You're a very different person. You don't want to get married. You don't read your YouTube comments. You've been in Better Call Saul and you've never seen it.
You know what's so funny? So my followers, they know that I'm in that show. And it happens maybe at least weekly where someone will message me on Instagram and say, I just saw you on TV. Was that you? And they'll send me the picture of it. And they, and like other content creators that they didn't know, because I don't really talk. Well, it seems like I talk about it a lot more now because it comes up when I just tell my story. But they'll see me on TV and they'll be sending me pictures. They'll make videos, like other Christian content creators have made videos. Voice of Reason Exposed.
Okay. I need to see this.
This is wild. So let me tell you something.
I will, yeah.
Let me tell you a funny story. So when I started working with Michael Lofton, I started doing streams with him regularly, right? We would do streams, and he and I did a stream one day. And after the stream, we did it in the morning, and then after the stream was over, we said our goodbyes, and we each went about our day.
All right.
Well, after the stream was over, he went and he went to go have lunch, and he put on the TV, and Michael Lofton.
Yeah.
And, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad are his favorite shows, so he puts on Better Call Saul, and he sees me in it. So he called me. We had just done a stream like 2 hours earlier, and he calls me and he goes, bro, I just saw you on TV.
Is that you?
That's me.
Raul?
Raul.
This is crazy.
And he calls me.
What's crazier is you don't seem to think it's crazy.
It's pretty crazy. So Michael Lofton calls me and he goes, I was just having lunch, and every time that he has lunch, he and his wife, they'll watch that show because this is his favorite show.
It's a lovely show.
And he saw me. And so he said, we need to do a stream where we talk about this. So I did a stream with Michael Lofton where I'm that outfit in that picture.
Yeah.
I put on that same outfit and I wear it and I do a whole stream with Michael Lofton where I'm in character, the character of Raul. And he like reveals it to his audience and he plays the clip of it of me in that show. So it's...
How long were you, how in the movie, how many, not that you would know because you haven't seen it, but how many minutes are you playing on screen?
I think it was only just briefly because whenever people send me, it's always that picture that they send of me. It's funny because all of my...
You look good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I had to audition for it. I auditioned for it. I interacted with all like the main actors. We did scenes together and everything. And the thing about the movie business or the, or film, or television is that the vast majority of the things that you do gets cut out.
Yeah.
And I've always had this problem with directors is, I'll say lines and the director's like, they say, I don't like your voice.
Do you think some of them think you're putting it on?
I don't know. I don't think so, because they get to know me and they talk to me what it is. They say your voice is too distracting.
Yeah, okay.
And it's when you're on set and you see how they work and how they operate, it's so they're so meticulous. If there's like a little something in the shot that's like no one would even notice, and they fix it and they said no, take that away because that's not going to work. That's going to ruin everything. It could be like a vase or something or whatever. And I've seen arguments where directors and producers will have an argument over if a vase should be here in the shot or there in the shot. And they'll go at it for like 20 minutes and somebody wins and somebody loses. So it's so meticulous. And the problem that I found in acting was that my voice actually hindered me more than it would help me, because they said your voice is too distinct and it's going to distract from the story.
Yeah.
They said it's, with people when they see you on TV or on the movie or whatever,
especially because you're not the main character.
Yes, they're going to be like, you're going to distract from what's going on. So my lines would always get cut.
Do you remember what lines you had?
Oh yeah, like in that scene. So I guess and I don't even know the character's names. I think his name is Lalo or something like that. He like just got out of prison and he's coming back to like his compound and we're greeting him because he was locked up for a while and he's like giving us instructions of what we're gonna do next, and then I get killed. And I have an off-camera death too, is what I came to find out, that my death happens off camera. So we put a lot of work into me getting killed and they didn't even show it.
How did they kill you on set?
We got shot up and it was like a massacre like that.
How? And then when they're filming it, what does the shooting look like? Is there any actual sound happening?
Oh, there's sound. Yeah, you can hear the sound and everything. It's just they're not live rounds. In that scene, actually, where that picture's from, in the scene, they're coming in a big SUV, and there's guys hanging from the SUV, and they're shooting into the air, like in celebration of that. The boss is back home, and I'm holding in that picture. You can't see it in that picture, but I'm holding a big rifle. Mm-hmm. So
how is it heavy like a rifle?
Yeah, it's like a real rifle. It's not a prop. They're used like it's but obviously we don't want to have an Alec Baldwin situation that happened in New Mexico in Santa Fe. That situation, that tragedy that happened. They try to make it as real as possible. It's crazy.
But you didn't have any ammunition.
No, of course not. No. So I was an actor before I was voice of reason.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you have any aspiration to do more of that?
Yeah. I would love to. I really, really would.
What about it do you love?
I love art. You just heard me talk about my, be a nerd about pro wrestling and art and storytelling. I love storytelling, and I love the small intricacies of a performance, and I love thinking about things deeply. What I love is sharing the truth with people. And when you're an actor, the beauty of acting is that you're sharing the truth with people. You're sharing the truth in an artificial situation, in imaginary circumstances, right? But you're sharing the truth. And it's beautiful when you can bring the truth out, even when you're in a make-believe world, and you can still be true, you can still be real.
Yeah.
When John Cena turned on Cody Rhodes, we know that that's a show. But that was real. That was, because that's life. In life, you become the bad guy sometimes. In life, sometimes you go against your own morals and you become the hypocrite and you turn into the bad guy. That's life. That's real. So even though you're in a show, you're in imaginary circumstances, you're trying to show that, portray that, express that in a way that resonates with the viewer and says that's me. Yeah. That's why Shakespeare is so amazing, because you can read Shakespeare and you read it and you say that it's almost like, this is me, this is my life. Shakespeare back in the 16th century wrote a story about me. Because it's all of our story, because it's the human condition. Yeah,
I find that when I read Crime and Punishment,
Dostoevsky,
I see parts of each of those characters within me. So what books do you love to read? First of all, what's the least impressive book you love, and then we can talk about more impressive book.
The least impressive book that I've. Here's the thing. I don't really read fiction. I've never really gotten into fiction. Yeah. Although so I love Chesterton. I love Orthodoxy. I love I've never read though his fiction.
Yeah.
I want to read his Father Brown series. I want to read, The Man Who Was Thursday. I want to read all of those books. For me, I don't know. And I know that. So I love Shakespeare, but I've never really gotten into like novels,
fiction,
into reading fiction, just because I've always been so caught up in apologetics or whatever it is, and reading theology. But I can't think of anything better than waking up in the morning, having a cigar, and reading Chesterton, reading Shakespeare, reading, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Reading good fiction, but I just...
You got to try The Lord of the Rings. I mean,
I've never read Lord of the Rings. I've never seen any of the films. I've never seen Star Wars.
Oh my God.
Here's the thing. I don't know why. For some reason, like fantasy films, like the sci-fi, they don't really like...
Yeah, sure.
I don't know why. It's just not really anything that's ever interested me. I'm more interested in like realism of like a Robert De Niro film, a Al Pacino film, Daniel Day-Lewis.
It's interesting because you're into pro wrestling. Like, you're not into fantasy, but you're into pro wrestling. Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis is absolutely exceptional.
He's maybe the greatest to ever do it.
Don't you think?
He is maybe the greatest to ever do it. With the things that man can do in putting a character together, it's like you don't even recognize him.
Goodness gracious.
You can't even tell it's Daniel Day-Lewis when it's like another person. And that's the goal.
Can you imagine how intimidating it would be acting with him, alongside him?
I was intimidated to light the cigar in front of you, Matt, and I did a terrible job of it. I've kind of redeemed myself now, but I could imagine the nerves of doing something. I worked with Angelina Jolie. I'm in a movie with her.
Which movie?
It's called Those Who Wish Me Dead. It was filmed in New Mexico.
Okay.
It came out, so it was filmed in 2019. They delayed it because of the pandemic, so they put it out in 2021. They released it a year later. I'm in that movie as well. I worked with
like as an extra, or do you have lines?
No, I had to audition for it and everything. And
you have lines in
my
the movie?
lines were probably cut because
because of the voice.
Because of the voice, and yeah, my lines were always cut. But I've never been starstruck before.
Yeah.
In acting. The one time that I was starstruck, I did a Netflix show called Daybreak with Matthew Broderick. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yep. Matthew Broderick.
Yep.
I've never seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but Matthew Broderick was Inspector Gadget in 1999 when I was 4 years old. And I watched that movie. I had that VHS, and I probably watched that thing like 500 times in a row.
Yep.
I love that movie. He was Inspector Gadget, and I remember I did that. The first time I ever saw him on set. We were in a high school, I remember, and he's like the principal, and I was just there, and I froze because I was like, Inspector Gadget is in front of me right now, and that's it. I worked with Angelina Jolie. I didn't freeze. I worked with can't remember his name, a big actor who's worked with Al Pacino and all them, and I didn't freeze. When Matthew Broderick walked onto the set and I saw him, it was over. It was over because that's Inspector Gadget.
Wow. So would that be the time you were most starstruck?
Up until now, yeah.
I wonder what... I'm just going to go over that comment. I wonder, what is it that makes us act like that?
It's just, it's very surreal.
That's the word I was going to come up with.
When you think, you're like, I remember being 4 years old in my little room at my parents' home and watching Inspector Gadget and jumping on the bed and bouncing off the walls because I love,
Because they're just knuckleheads like you and me. There's no difference.
And now I'm here in person and I'm working with them. It's just very surreal. When I got on with Michael Lofton, that was very surreal. Doing this with you was very surreal. Talking to Lila Rose was very surreal because these are people, I've watched you guys for years.
I think what's got to be hard about being someone famous, like the people we're talking about, is that every meeting they have with somebody is going to be a story that gets repeated.
Right.
So I could ask you right now, well, what was Angelina Jolie like?
Right.
And so she must be aware on some level that every interaction she has with anybody, because of her fame, is going to be a story.
Talk of the town. Yeah.
So therefore, since I should probably always have my best foot forward, but nobody always has their best foot forward. People have bad days. And But what was she like?
Oh, she was great.
Good job, Angelina.
She was great. She treated us so well. She took the time to talk to all of like the lesser nobody actors like me. She took pictures with us.
Yeah.
She talked to us. She asked us how we were doing, about how our day was going. She was trying to be as accommodating as she could to the people, and she.
Was she the director or just acting?
No, she was just acting. She was a star. Obviously, it's Angelina Jolie, but she was great to all of us. She was really good to all of us. She was great. I've never really had a bad experience, even with an actor. I've met quite a few and they always treated me so well.
I think a lot of it has to do with your expectations. I think that might be why people speak poorly of other people, is because they have some weird expectation as to how they ought to behave with them.
Yeah.
But if you have a kind of humble approach, like, hey, look, this is Angelina Jolie. I don't expect her to say a word to me.
Right.
You know, why would she? You know, and then she does. But if you go in kind of expecting they should give you more time than they really should, then I could see you getting upset.
Yeah. And it was...
My point is, I wonder how much of our criticism of famous people is actually more of a reflection on our pride than them.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. And I've always been very aware of that. I've always... I love praying the Litany of Humility. Every morning I pray the Litany of Humility.
God bless you. Yeah.
Every morning. I try my best to, almost every morning. There are times when, you know, I get up, pray the Litany of Humility, and I always remind myself, you know, God is God, I am not, and I'm, you know, don't have these high expectations that things are supposed to.
Which ones, because people should check this out if they haven't, the Litany of Humility. Google it, print it out, put it on your phone, make it your screensaver.
Get it from the Pieta prayer book.
It's like getting kicked in the guts every morning.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's not kicking you in the guts, then you don't mean what you're saying.
You're not doing it right.
You're a saint. So what, which line affects you the most? Which one, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh my God.
When you say it, you're like, oof. There were some in there that I didn't realize why they were there until I maybe grew more in self-knowledge. One of them is to be consulted. It's like, that doesn't affect me. And then I realized, no, I really want people to include me in their plans. Oof. Lord, deliver me.
You know what's the line that stands out the most to me from that prayer? Is that I desire that everyone be holier than me, provided that I be as holy as I should be. That line was always like, there's just something about it that, you know, every time that I pray it, I just kind of just stop and I think about it like, what does that look like? How do I know that I'm as holy as I should be? And I ask myself, like, would I be jealous if someone was holier? And I know the answer is no, because I've met people that are way holier than me, and I admire them. I love being around holy people. I love when I meet somebody and I say, that's a holy guy, I want to be like him. If I'm the holiest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Yeah.
I don't want to, you know, because I know myself and I know that I have so many problems and I need to, you know, things that I need to get fixed and things that I need to work on myself.
I want to tell you about Hallow, which is the #1 downloaded prayer app in the world. It's outstanding. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. Sign up over there right now and you will get the first 3 months for free. That's like a lot of time. You can decide whether it's useful to you or not, whether it's helpful. If you don't like it, you can always quit. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. I use it. My family uses it. It's fantastic. There are over 10,000 audio guided prayers, meditations, and music, including my lo-fi. Hallow has been downloaded over 15 million times in 150 different countries. It helps you pray, helps you meditate, helps you sleep better. It helps you build a daily routine and a habit of prayer. There's honestly so much excellent stuff on this app that it's difficult to get through it all. Just go check it out. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. The link is in the description below. It even has an entire section for kids. So if you're a parent, you could play little Bible stories to them at night. It'll help them pray. Fantastic. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd.
You know how you might go to a doctor and I don't know, I'm just thinking of an analogy here. And the doctor might press on certain parts of your body. Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here?
Right.
Ooh, that hurts right there.
Yep.
Okay, now I know what needs to be healed.
Right, exactly.
Same thing with the Litany of Humility.
Yep.
If I say, Lord, from the fear of being forgotten, so, all right, that's where the Lord can go to work.
Yeah.
But it hurts. It hurts to be vulnerable enough to admit that I'm terrified of being forgotten. What does that mean? Like, what do I do with that? Jesus.
Right. I think now that I've thought about it a little bit more, probably the line of from the fear of being despised. Mm-hmm. Because I go out of my way, whenever I meet somebody, I want to make sure that they have a good opinion of me. I never want to, because I know that I'm representing, being that I'm in the space that I'm in, I never want anybody to have an interaction with me, and then when they walk away and they go, Voice of Reason was a jerk. That he's fake. I never want people to have that experience with me, so I always tell myself, like, I need to, you know, and it's funny because there'll be times when I'm out in public and I'll notice people that are like looking at me, they see me, and, you know, and I see it, and then not until much later that they come after me and they're like, hi, I just wanted to talk to you because I know you know, I watch you on YouTube or whatever, and I see that, I'm like, okay, I know that I have a responsibility now that when I'm out in public, I better be behaving, and I better not be doing anything stupid, because people know, people do recognize me, which is crazy to me, which is really crazy to me. So I always keep that in mind. I'm like, I have a duty, I have a responsibility to make sure that I'm carrying myself correctly.
That's true, right? And then there's also the flip side of this, that if you care too much, it might be a sign of your pride.
Exactly.
That's what's difficult.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you could also see somebody who's, just like we were saying earlier about somebody who's really famous, they're trapped by that. Like, I can't have anyone think poorly of me.
Right.
It's like, why? Because that's not good either.
Yes, that's true.
You don't want to be responsible, but you cannot control how people will receive you.
Right, that's true.
They may not have had a coffee that morning. Maybe you just said something on a video that rubbed them the wrong way, and then they see you, and then they, we're not in control of other people. We're only in control of ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not extroverted.
Me neither.
And so it's difficult for me to have conversations with a lot of people that are very quick.
Right.
So if I'm meeting people after something, I definitely try to be, hey, and I hope it's sincere, but it exhausts me quickly. Like, if you think of those sort of like health bars in those fighting games, like I'm depleted really quickly.
Yeah.
My wife, very extroverted.
Yeah.
She gains life by interacting with people. She becomes best friends with her hairdresser and the lady she just met in the elevator. I'm like,
that's beautiful, though.
It's
that's
great.
So beautiful.
It's great, but I don't want to do that. That's not me, and I don't need it to be me.
Right. Right.
And that's not me having a license to be rude to people. It's just, that's good. Praise God, that's a real gift, but that's not me.
You know what's one of the hardest things to do? Me personally, one of the things that I have the most difficulty with? So I go out of my way to try and do this. Small talk.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at small talk. I don't like small talk. Like, I don't like I have a million things going on in my head, and I'm thinking of, but then that's my pride, that because I think I'm some sort of great, I'm trying to think the way Aquinas thought, so I can't trouble myself with talking to the little people or whatever, that they just want to talk about the weather or whatever. But then I know, the Holy Spirit convicts me, and I said, no. There's more charity in having small talk with people, and actually respecting them, giving them the respect and the honor that they're due, because they're made in the image of God, by having the small talk with them, than to ignore people because I'm thinking of these abstract things.
Yeah.
But small talk for me, it's really, really difficult, which is why I go out of my way to do it, because I want to do it right. I want to get good at small talk, because really that's actually more important. That's actually really, at the end of the day, that's more important than,
It primes the pump for deeper relationship.
Yes,
you can't go into a deeper relationship without basic affability.
Right.
And you may know this, but Aquinas has a section on affability or friendliness.
Yep.
And he actually called me out one day, right? Because I'm like that too. I'm like, it's easy to put lipstick on a pig and try to justify our vices.
Right.
So if you don't like small talk, it's easy to be like, well, I'm
too smart. I'm too
smart.
Yeah.
I just prefer more meaty conversation.
Yeah.
We got to be always careful of doing that, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things I would say is something like that, or maybe like, no, I think what I would say is I don't want to be fake.
Right.
So I'm not going to pretend to be happy around someone if I'm not feeling it.
Right.
Which, okay, there's something there, but actually that's one of the objections Aquinas responds to.
Right.
So I'm sitting on a park bench and I'm reading the Summa in my hand, and I come across that line. And his point was, okay, in order for society to work, actually, we need to be basically friendly to each other. Yes. And it doesn't really matter how you feel.
You got to fake it till you make it.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
I used to have a problem with that. Oh, fake it till you make it. But no, that's true. That's true. Like Shapiro says, facts don't care about your feelings. Well, human interaction, really, it really doesn't care about your feelings. It's not about how I feel. It's about what is good for society. What is good for the world to keep spinning the way that it does, and for things to go well, is that we all respect each other enough to be able to, because we're social creatures, to socialize with each other. Once you remove yourself from the social aspect, even because I'm the same way. I don't like to go out. I don't like to be in crowds. I hate crowds. I can't stand being in crowds. I don't like, and that's how I am personally. But I'm still a social creature, and if I find myself in that situation, I have an obligation to participate, because that's part of what we all have that obligation, because that's how society is built, and how society continues to thrive and push forward, is when we all recognize that we have the obligation and the duty to perform in it and to do our part and contribute to it. Because if we imagine if we were all the same way, society would collapse.
Yeah.
It really, really would. So who am I to think that I'm special and that I don't need to be involved in these human rituals that we do that, you know, seem pointless in the moment? Who am I to think that I'm special? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
You know? So let me go and let me try to be good at the small talk. Let me strike up a conversation with the guy selling me coffee or whatever, you know, or with the mailman, whatever it is, because that's what that's part of being pro-life. That's part of being pro-life. Being pro-life is about respecting the human dignity that we all have. And part of respecting human dignity is recognizing that we are all people made in the image of God and that we all have that inherent value, that I should be worthy enough to have I would like to think that I'm worthy enough that someone would want to have a stranger would want to have a conversation with me.
I've wondered often if the rise in introversion, because I'm hearing it more and more, right? And there's a lot of memes online about it. And I'm wondering how much of that is genuine and how much of that is the result of being glued to our screens and becoming thereby socially awkward because of that. And this, I don't want to engage with other people now because other people are actually more difficult than my Instagram reels. Right. So I was like, okay, no, you're not, you might not be introverted. You might be just a selfish person who needs to stop that.
Right. Well, you know what's so interesting? It's kind of like, I feel like Chesterton, if Chesterton, because Chesterton, he's the Prince of Paradox. Right?
Yeah, right.
I feel like if he could see the way that we are now glued to our phones, and the irony of it is that we have sacrificed being social in person to be social virtually, because I don't want to talk to this person that's in front of me right now because I have about, I have 90,000 Instagram followers that I want to see what they're doing, and I want to know what they think about what I'm doing or whatever.
Yeah.
But the one guy that's in front of me, I don't care what he thinks about me. So it's a really weird.
I think and it's always
paradox.
True, right? The way to heal from these things is not to listen to what you just said and realize how we see that in other people. The way to heal it is to hear that and immediately realize how that's true in our own life. Yeah, don't worry, you're great.
I made a mess. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm a bad guest.
Well, it's not a very big ashtray, so because it is always easy. Oh yeah, I know people like that. So no, stop. That's not the Christian way. The Christian way is like, oh, I see that in me.
Yep.
Yeah. What's that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Being ugly is so easy.
Being what?
Being ugly.
Oh, yeah, I find it quite easy. Yeah.
Being ugly is so easy. So easy. But the things that are worth doing are like, I like the line that you say, the things that are worth doing are worth doing poorly.
I think it was Chesterton.
Right? Mm-hmm. Even if you fail, try it and keep trying it because you'll get better with time. If I'm not good at small talk, keep trying it. Just keep trying it because it's...
I had a friend outdo me because I often talk about how my rosaries have changed over the years with my family. Yeah. And I'm so grateful because of it. Yeah. But my friend outdid me. He's like, they pray the rosary while they wash up.
Yeah.
So his wife makes them a beautiful dinner, and then she made the dinner. So there's the husband, good friend, one of my best friends, gathers the kids, and him and the kids clean the entire kitchen while her puts the baby down.
That's beautiful.
It is, and they all pray the rosary while they're cleaning. So it would be easier if you had that kind of perfectionism. Like no, man, we got to be kneeling, we got to be, and of course there's merit to that, and there's merit to paying attention to our mysteries. But if you only do the thing when you can do it perfectly, you may not ever do it at all.
There you go.
Yeah.
I always tell people too when they ask me, and again, I'm an apologist. I'm not a spiritual. I always tell people, go talk to your spiritual father, go talk to a priest, go talk. But when people ask me about prayer, I always tell people, I say, don't think that your prayer has to look pretty. The vast majority of the time, your prayer is not going to look pretty, and God is not requiring your prayer to look pretty. Sometimes you pray while you're, in the shower. Sometimes you pray while you're fixing your car. Sometimes you pray while you're...
Rush hour.
Yes. It's not supposed to look pretty. Don't worry about it. Is it authentic? Is it genuine? Are you doing it out of love? Or are you just doing it because you're trying to look perfect?
I wonder, I've had this conversation with someone recently about the temptation to switch let's call it the poverty of parish living with the vibes of social media. Right. So it's easier to scroll through big bearded monks on my Instagram and people praying the chotki or the rosary. That feels great. I'm getting all these vibes from that. But that's not where
It's not what it looks
the
like in real
daily life.
Yeah.
The poverty of. When do you need to leave? I don't know.
I'm here for as long as you need me.
What time's your flight?
I think 5. Yeah, it's about to be 1:30. So, you want to know something funny?
Yep.
I have a court date today, and I skipped it to be here with you.
Are you allowed to do that? Oh, it's your court date. You're not on a jury.
I'm the guy that's guilty of what I did. So I have to go to court, but they told me that I could just call in and do it like over the phone.
Yeah.
So I'm just being mindful of the time to make sure.
When do you have to do that?
So it's 2 p.m. my time, which would be 4 p.m. Today. So I'm good. Yeah. So I got to call in and just let them know that, it's because I'm a bad boy,
Yeah.
I got, yeah. So
do you want to say what you
got
did?
in trouble with the law. I got pulled over for my registration of my vehicle being expired. So I have to call and present that I fixed it, which I did.
Yeah.
I have my vehicle registration in this bag here so that I have it,
Very good. When you switched from your Western tradition to Eastern traditions, because you go to an Eastern Catholic church, for those at home, have you retained any of your Western devotions?
Like Rosary, Divine Mercy.
Isn't the Rosary beautiful?
Oh my gosh.
So
I don't do it enough.
Beautiful.
I don't do it enough to my shame.
Yeah.
You know what? It's interesting because now that you bring that up about the Rosary, because that's the devotion that always comes up. It's the most popular devotion in the West. And, I always feel to my shame, because especially like all of these new like converts that I've become friends with, and they're like, I pray the Rosary every day now, and it's great. And I'm like, shoot, I don't pray the Rosary every day.
Yeah.
Maybe I should. I probably should. I know that I'd be a better person if I did, but I don't do it every day. And this guy that's brand new, he's praying the Rosary every day. She's praying the Rosary every day. They're more Catholic than me now.
Well, certainly I think we can learn from converts. Yeah. But I've always thought, I pray the Rosary every day, but I think it's like to demand what the church doesn't is to get on icy ground.
Right, yep.
You got to be so careful, especially in the,
No, please.
Well, just in the throes of new vigor.
Yeah.
You start getting excited about something works for you. Let's say it's a particular saint, particular book, particular devotion, particular scapula. And great, it's really great. But if you start demanding, as it were, that other people do this thing or else they're sub-Catholic,
exactly.
Yeah, you've lost it.
100%.
Now, that's different to passionately and enthusiastically encouraging people. Like the way I see it is, all right, man, this little devotion was good enough for St. Dominic and Louis de Montfort and Maximilian Kolbe and Padre Pio and Mother Teresa and Archbishop Fulton Sheen and the holy men like Dr. Scott Hahn, other people that I know. All right. Might be good enough for me too. I think it's,
But then when I see that, right, it always reminds me back to the Litany of Humility. That clause when you say, I pray that others become holier than me as long as I become as holy as I should.
Yeah.
So whenever I see all of these people that I know that are now like more Catholic than me, or they're more faithful than me, or they pray more than me, and I'm like, well, you know what? Isn't this what I pray for every morning when I pray the Litany of Humility? So I'm like, okay, good. And I always tell them, I say, pray for me. When you pray the Rosary, please pray for me as well, because I need it. So I'm happy. I'm genuinely happy for people when if they become holier than me, more devout than me, more knowledgeable than me. I can honestly say that I'm genuinely happy for them.
I think what's beautiful about the Holy Rosary is it's a real easy way to immerse your mind and heart in the scriptures that you probably otherwise wouldn't do because of its simplicity. Right. So I was driving up the highway today and I was meditating on the fourth joyful mystery, the purification Christ. And as I'm praying and I'm thinking of Our Lady, this is a bit, I don't know what you think about this. Okay, this is meditative prayer, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I put myself standing next to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and she asked me to hold something. And so maybe I'm holding the pigeons,
It's beautiful.
And I say to her, could I hold him instead? And she smiles at me, and she gives me Our Lord, and I press my face against him, and I feel his warm, soft skin, and I tell him I love him. Dude,
you're going to make me cry, man.
That was driving in Jacksonville.
Here's
beautiful. My point is, can you do that elsewhere? 100%.
Yeah.
But are you? Maybe you are, and that's great. But for me, I wouldn't. It's I love to pick up the New Testament every morning and read it. But there's something about the Rosary, the simplicity of it, the mobility of it.
Yeah.
It just thrusts you into the Word of God like that. Yeah.
I have a really good dear friend of mine. She's become such a great friend of mine. She's from Armenia, and she's part of the Armenian Apostolic Church. She's Oriental Orthodox, and she's becoming Catholic.
Oh, wow.
And she picked up the rosary, and she has a big devotion of the rosary. And when we talk, and she tells me all about it, and she just tells me about how much she loves praying the rosary. And like just a few days ago, she actually had a meeting with the Armenian Catholic bishop out in California, and he gave her his own personal rosary that he always would carry with him. And he gave it to her because she was telling him how much she loves the rosary. And he said, perfect, good, here. This is mine, now it's yours. I want you to use this one. I want you to pray for me when you know. And she called me when that happened, and this happened just a few days ago, and she was so excited, and she was so happy. And he told her, because, he was kind of interviewing her because she said, I want to come into the church. And he was so impressed by her. He said, I will receive you into the church right now today if you want to. She said, all you have to do is go to confession. I'll give you the Eucharist and you're Catholic. She said, right now. And she was like, and she said he wants to receive her for sure before Easter. So she chose to be received with the other, catechumens that are coming in to be received on Easter. But he said, I'll do it right now if you want. Because she was so impressed by her, because he gave her like a theological exam. And he was like, let me see if you're coming in here for the right reasons. Do you understand this? And she passed with flying colors. And he was very impressed. The bishop was very impressed and said, how do you know this? How do you know all these things? Where did you learn these things? And she goes, I listened to Trent Horn and Voice of Reason. And she's just, And we're making an impact.
I'll get something for you.
You have something for me?
I got a gift for you.
No.
Hey, you wait there. And
Another gift? You've already given me so much. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm spoiled. I'm a spoiled man, let me tell you.
All right, so this is a Holy Rosary from Theotokos Rosaries.
Okay.
They make them, have you seen them?
No, I don't think so.
I think they make the most beautiful rosaries I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I said that to them, and they said, let us send you a couple. So my wife and I did a little recording of us opening them, and they couldn't keep up with the demand, and they sold out immediately, and they were grateful,
Praise God.
busy. And so they said, well, can we just send you a bunch and you can give them occasionally to a guest?
Oh, my God.
So I got, Tammy Peterson coming on soon. Other people coming on. I can't wait to give it to them. But this is for you. Give us your, open it up. Tell us your honest thought.
Oh, this is beautiful. Look at this.
And dude, you should see how they actually send them. They send them with boxes and there's feathers in them. And I said, don't send me that stuff. Just the bag's enough, because to open it up on set, it's a lot.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, this is weighty. Oh, my gosh. Look at this. Oh, my goodness. Oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. Look at this.
Isn't that beautiful? So go follow Theotokos Rosaries online.
This is beautiful. Thank you so much.
What I respect about this woman who makes them is she makes them based on particular churches around the world. So she does like 7 different rosaries, and that's it. And if you ask, well, could you do it? No, it's one of these. So this one's based on, it's inspired by St. Peter's Basilica. And you'll notice that they have these beads for each decade. You see how there's a different bead for that first one there, on that first decade?
On this one right here?
No, the first decade. See that bead? Here? And then you go to the next one. You see it's number 2?
Right.
No, that one.
Oh, right here, yeah.
And then the next one's number 3, because you're on the third decade. And the next one is the 4th bead down.
Oh,
you see what I mean by that?
Yes.
Yeah, anyway. So pray that and pray for me.
Yes. Oh, my, thank you so This is beautiful. Thank you so much. This is beautiful.
Yeah, I just want to encourage everybody to pray the rosary.
Thank you.
I really do. It's just simple. Just talk to Our Lady.
Thank you so much.
Meditate on the life of our Lord.
Okay, so if we're doing the gift giving thing, I have more.
Stop it.
You know what?
I'm looking around thinking, what can I give you now next?
I will not be outdone. Watch. I got something for you, all right?
All right.
So I got 2 more things for you.
Wow.
Just 2 more things, and the one that I'm the most shy about, I'm going to save to the end, and I'll tell you why I'm shy. But my priest, who's the pastor emeritus of my church.
Yeah.
He's a historian, and he wrote a book about the underground church in the Soviet Union, about the Byzantine church. It's called Finding a Hidden Church. Father Christopher Zuger. Thank you. That's his book, and he signed it for you.
Oh, that's very
Father
kind.
Christopher Zuger is he has been to Ukraine I don't know how many times, all over the Soviet Union, getting smuggled in. He wrote a whole history of the church underground.
That's beautiful.
And then he also has this brief. It's a little an essay on the history of, and he also wanted me to give this to you as well.
Thank you.
So that's for you from Father Chris Zuger. who's also TikTok famous and Instagram famous because we put him on. We started making videos with him, and he's incredible. He's one of the holiest men. He's amazing.
I love the front cover. I love the minimalism of this. It's beautiful.
Yes, Finding a Hidden Church from Father Chris, and he talks about he interviewed. He did a lot of interviews to write his books. He has multiple books, and his work is remarkable, and he's incredible.
Are you writing a book? Are you tempted to?
A lot of people have asked me that. Like, what are you gonna? You should write a book, and I'm like, I don't know if I could write a book. I don't know if.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Maybe one day I'll write a book. But you've written a very, very important book about something that most men deal with today. And now that we're on the subject of books, I have he's a friend of mine. He's one of my patrons. He's from Europe. His name is Dominic. He is he's a convert. He actually came into the Catholic. He used to be one of those people in my comments that would like attack me, not attack me, but he's like, I can't stand this guy. I don't like this guy. Well, he was watching my stuff for a while, and then now he's Catholic. He's a beautiful man. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man with a heart of gold. He is starting a ministry in, I forget, because he travels so much around Europe, I can't even remember where he lives. He is starting a ministry to help men overcome addiction to pornography. And I told him, I said, hey.
God bless him.
I told him, I said, because he wants my help. He's like, he emailed me the stuff that he has, the stuff that he wants to share. And he was like, can you help me with getting this ministry off the ground? And I said, I've never done anything like this before. And I said, but I know someone who has. And I said, hey, man, when I talk to Matt Fradd, maybe I can send him your stuff and he can take a look and maybe he can help you and give you some pointers on how to do this because it's something that he's really passionate about. He is so devout to Our Lady. He's a saint.
Is he an English-speaking?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
European?
Yeah. He's English, an English speaker. And I said, hey, man, like,
God bless him.
Matt Fradd is the man when it comes to this. I'm sure Matt Fradd, he can help you with this. So if that's something that, if I could just forward you the email of the stuff that he sent, and then maybe, I could get you in contact with him.
Sure.
Because he really wants to do this. And I don't know.
What does he want to do?
He wants a ministry where he actually goes and helps men and, kind of like forms a group where he helps them overcome
that's cool.
Pornography addiction. Because
I'm not an expert on this topic. I'm the pamphleteer. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So if I was talking to him, my advice would be, you already know what to do. You already know. So just do that and pray more.
Okay.
That's it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You don't need advice. You don't need direction. Just listen to the experts. I mean, there's some really good people writing on this topic.
Yeah.
And it depends on what angle you want to take it from, but and then just do it. Do that thing.
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, I'll still look at the stuff. I'm not saying I won't. I'm just I just think often when people, it's like that passion, that fire, that's what you need. That's the thing you can't teach. So if he's got that,
he's in love. He's one of those guys that is in love, Matt. He's in love with the faith. He's in love with our Lord. He's in love with his church, meaning he's in love with you. He's in love with me. He's in love with his fellow brothers and sisters in the Lord. And he just wants to, he's very passionate about this. He feels really called that he wants to help men overcome this issue. Yeah. And when he talks about it, like, that's a guy that's in love, And
more and more, I've said this recently, but more and more I'm convinced that what we put into our bodies is it's a big thing when it comes to sexual purity.
Oh, yeah.
If we're eating junk and drinking trash.
Not sleeping enough, which is often a result of the kind of trash we're eating, then there's this, like, we ride the highs and lows of, like, dopamine spikes and crashes. Yep.
And we're just in a perpetually agitated state. If we can kind of balance that out,
go.
I find it just makes everything easier. Yeah.
It all comes down to routine. You need to have a routine.
What does your routine look like?
So my routine is I wake up in the morning, I pray.
What time do you wake up?
So I wake up about 5 is when I try to wake up.
Do you have an alarm or do you just tend to wake up?
I just wake up around that time. So I wake up, I pray, I go to the Pieta prayer book and I pray all of my, the prayers from there that I pray every day. I read scripture. Well, actually, no, I wake up and I brush my teeth. That's the first thing. I wake up, make the sign of the cross, go brush my teeth, go back to bed, actually. And then I pray while I'm in bed. Okay. And then I wake, and read scripture. Then I get up, make my bed, go to the gym, come home, eat, bathe, and then and I'm praying all throughout. Actually, I say the Jesus prayer like, I don't know, 100 times a day. And then I just start working. I look through my emails, my messages, start filming videos, start doing chores, running errands, whatever it is that I need to do, and then just work really hard all day, and then at night wind down, pray again, read scripture, read a good book, go to sleep, and then wake up and do it again. And
do you go to the gym every day?
Monday through Friday. Yeah.
Do you do?
I know you can't tell, but
strength training every day.
We train. Yeah.
Yeah, I go about 3 or 4 times a week, and it makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
If you're anything like me, you sometimes reach the end of summer feeling a little spiritually drained and in need of rest. That's why I'm excited to tell you about St. Michael's Lent with Exodus 90. Rooted in an ancient tradition practiced by St. Francis of Assisi, this 40-day journey was born out of his deep devotion to St. Michael the Archangel. In fact, it was during this practice that St. Francis received the stigmata, a profound moment of grace and transformation. Join Exodus 90 in bringing back this ancient tradition, a chance to break away from distraction, reconnect with prayer, and fortify your faith. This year, they're diving into the letters of St. Paul to help us see beyond the material world and enter into the reality of the spiritual battle we're living in. So, men, if you've been feeling the call to go deeper, to live with greater freedom, discipline, and purpose, join Father Innocent and Father Angelus of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal as they lead us through St. Michael's Lent starting August 15th. Be a part of reviving this ancient tradition in the Church and rally with brothers from around the world to follow the example of St. Francis and St. Michael. Go to exodus90.com/Matt to find out more information. Join us on August 15th for St. Michael's Lent and get ready to fight the good fight. That's exodus90.com/Matt.
It really, really does. It helps. And it's interesting when you have a routine and you put the important things first, you pray, you read scripture, you meditate and all that, and you do that. You go to the gym, you eat well, you go throughout your day and you don't feel the urge to sin. Because you have your mind, it's all about keeping your vision on Christ. Like St. Peter, when he was walking on the water, when he looked away from him is when he started sinking. If we just keep our gaze on him, it's through his grace that we can do anything. If we just keep our focus on him.
I think that absolutely. I think that self-abuse and pornography and these types of things are ways of medicating.
Yes.
Self-soothing.
Yes.
That's been the most helpful way of me for me to think about this. It's again usually when we're internally dysregulated that we seek to regulate. We're frustrated, we're agitated, we might be angry, we might be hurt by somebody.
Right.
And we try to make the interior feel better quickly.
Right.
So you're exactly right, I think. With routine, you're more likely to be in a stable place. Yeah. And that will be less of an issue. The other thing I would say, though, is when one does have a sexual fall, just to not be surprised and just to go, that sounds like something I do. I'm an idiot who's easily distracted, but I'm an idiot loved by the good Jesus,
Amen.
whose mercy is always available to me. And so I'm just going to repent and not be terribly worried about it.
Of course.
Yeah. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Like we're just easily distracted people who make bad decisions.
Yeah. And this helps a lot too.
Yeah.
This helps a lot too. When you're meditating on our Lord, you're not thinking about how to self-medicate yourself, how to, overeating. My two big problems are anger and gluttony are my two biggest problems.
What I've found is for the last 7 months, I've been eating almost only meat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And on Sundays, I'll loosen it. And so I'll have some like plantain chips with no bad oils or sugars, right? Or even some macadamia nuts. But what I find is when I have that stuff, I become irrepressible. Like I just want more. I want more. I want to satisfy this craving for something. But when I just eat, and I'm not promoting the meat diet, people can do whatever they want. Right. They can apply it to however they eat. But I know for me personally, when I'm just eating like red meat, whether it's like mince meat, some eggs, I don't have that weird urge to keep trying to fill or scratch that itch.
Right.
And I think if that's true, because we all know what that's like, eh? Like you eat a big steak, you're done.
Yeah.
If someone brought you another steak, it might even look disgusting to you. Like, no, I'm good. But you eat like a bag of Skittles, like you'll have another one. Oh, yeah. I'll have another can of Coke. You can eat that and never be sated.
Cupcakes and muffins and
So what I think though is, if I live in that state of I always just want more, I'm trying to satisfy something that cannot be satisfied, then I think that pornography, self-abuse and things like this are more likely to occur. I remember once I was eating junk constantly and I was rummaging through the cupboards. My wife said, "What are you looking for?" I said, "Happiness." Because I'm just trying to satisfy something. I think bad food does that to us. It puts us in that perpetual, I need more of something.
When you find yourself in that state, all that means is that you've been feeding yourself the wrong thing, you know? So you're right, yeah. When you feed yourself the right thing, you're good.
Or at least better.
Yeah,
you know? Because we talk about internal and external triggers.
Yeah.
So an external trigger is the sex scene that showed up on the show and I didn't even know it was going to be there.
Right.
The internal triggers are much more difficult to find. Like maybe I feel emasculated, or maybe I feel like hurt because someone criticized me.
Yeah.
But I didn't even sit to ask myself about that. I just rushed on because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And now there's stuff happening underneath the surface that I'm not even cognizant of.
Yeah.
And now when that external trigger appears, now it's a whole lot easier for my world to fall apart.
Right.
But if I'm like recollected the way that the Carmelites and others talk about being recollected in the good Jesus is with me now, present before him. Yeah. Oh, it's so good to be Catholic, isn't it?
Oh, praise
isn't
God.
It beautiful?
Praise God. Praise God that he had so much mercy on us that he revealed himself to us and that we know exactly where we can find his grace and his healing. We know exactly where it is, and all we got to do is just go and it's there. That's...
Final question, and then we'll have a break and we'll come back. But what's a book you're reading right now that you're like, oh, people have to read this book?
So I have it on me actually right now. It's I'll pull it out so we can promote. So I have he's actually an Eastern Orthodox author.
Yep.
Who he wrote a book. I'm going to be doing a review on it. I was reading it on the plane on the way here. It is called Types and Symbols in the Bible by Christopher Lockwood.
Beautiful.
I met him in California. I think it was last month that I was there in California, and I met him, and he gave a lecture. It's actually on Jonathan's Roots of Orthodoxy channel. He wrote this book, and he's just going through all of the ways that the church fathers, the connections that they made between the Old and the New Testament. Really good book. So I'm reading this right now, and I'm going to be doing a review on it on my channel. And he's a great person. I got to meet him at a Greek Orthodox church, and he spent some time with us. And he wants to do collaborations, and he wants to work together. Great guy, great guy. So everyone, Types and Symbols in the Bible, Christopher Lockwood.
Can I check it out?
Support, yeah, of course. Go and check it out. Go and
beautiful.
Go and get the book. He has a PhD and he taught like in seminaries like in Europe and he's a young guy too. He's young.
Wow.
He's probably, I wouldn't say he's older than 40.
Wow.
He's a young guy and he wrote that book and
bless him.
Good stuff.
All right, so that's one book you're reading. Is that the kind of book you would say, yeah, you got to read this book? Or is there another book that you've read lately?
A million books. There's so many. Thank you.
Mine is always Searching for and Maintaining Peace by Jacques Philippe.
Okay.
I've
never read that one.
Very little book.
Oh, okay.
That's what people are like, what should I read? I'm like, read that. It's easy. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always this, talking because people are always asking me for book recommendations.
Yeah.
And I always go back to the basics and I always go back to the books that were like game changers for me. Right, so Peter Kreeft wrote a book that it's more for like young, like a teenager could. It's called Jesus Shock.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've read it.
Excellent. It was based off a talk he gave.
Jesus Shock is that was the book from Dr. Peter Kreeft that the light bulb kind of went on. That was one of the first books that I read when I started my journey in learning about our Lord and the faith in His church. Jesus Shock, game changer. And then I know you know this one, Matthew Kelly, Rediscover Catholicism.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but...
Oh my, Matthew Kelly, Rediscover Catholicism. Those are the two that I always come back to because in my life, they were the ones that were the most impactful.
Yep.
Those two books, Jesus Shock, Rediscover Catholicism, and then a million other books. But
it's amazing how many people have been brought into the church from Rome Sweet Home. But I think the new Rome Sweet Home, if I can put it that way, is Trent Horn's Why We're Catholic.
Yeah. Patrick Madrid's work too.
Which one?
So
in particular,
the Surprised by Truth series, Pope Fiction. Even Patrick Madrid is so great because he's able to. It's just apologetics, but he's able to present it in a way that's like.
He's the real deal too. I know Patrick. I've been to his house. I know him. I know his wife.
He is incredible.
So down to earth, really down to earth and kind and normal and just a balanced individual.
A normal person, right?
Yeah.
He's incredible. From his work is so good. His when he debated James White, both times that he debated James White, incredible.
I got to be honest. When I listened to the debate he did on Intercession of the Saints, I wasn't sure how I felt. I wasn't just maybe I just took it superficially, but I felt like I wasn't convinced he got the upper hand on that one. Maybe if I went back now, I'd disagree with that assessment. But when he debated James White and Sola Scriptura, it was over.
So you know what's so interesting? I have the opposite on those two. The 1993 debate, I sound like James White now. 1993, and you know, the 93 debate with James White, excellent. But the 2002 debate with James White on the veneration of images, and that one right there was just
which year?
2002. That was in 2002 when he had that debate.
Yeah. You thought he did really well on that one.
I remember when I've only listened to it once, but I remember listening to it and being like floored, like wow. That like maybe I have to go back to listen to it now, to listen to both. But I thought that one, Patrick Madrid just stole that debate, just running, you know. The 93 debate, because I have the 93 debate, the Sola Scriptura debate, I have listened to it a few times. And it's great. It's really, really good. But I think that even the 2002 debate, I remember my impression of it when I saw it was that was even better.
What was a Catholic versus whoever debate that you've watched that you thought, oh, this was sensational for the Catholic position?
So that Patrick Madrid debate, the 2002 debate with James White, anything that Trent Horn has ever done, anything that Jimmy Akin has ever done, even a lot of the debates from the 90s when Dr. White, when he debated like Robertson Jenis, was excellent. It was so good. It was so good. There's many debates like that.
Did you see Joe Heschmeyer's debate with White?
I haven't watched it yet. Watched it yet, but I've heard that he was just...
He just went in there and chose violence, as they say.
I think Joe Heschmeyer...
He's unreal.
I think pound for pound, I think he's the top guy right now.
Yeah.
I think Joe Heschmeyer, if I had to list him... In what regard? Debates, just as an apologist.
Yeah.
I think his apologetic work right now, it's always... Trent Horn, Jimmy Akin, but I think Joe Heschmeyer right now, he's on a run where he's the Cody Rhodes
and that's
of this right now.
He's the Cody Rhodes. What's interesting is that you're saying that having not yet watched perhaps his most incredible debate.
Yeah.
So what was it that you saw that you were like, oh, he's the guy right now?
Just his video. He's a lawyer. Joe Heschmeyer is a lawyer by trade, so he knows how to argue in a way that's... He has training in this.
I got his book, Pope Peter, over there. I read that in like a day. People should get Pope Peter. Yeah. Excellent book.
Excellent book
There's
as well.
So many good resources.
He's great. He really knows. He has a very excellent way of the way he explains things. Like you could tell he's a lawyer. Like it's very calm, very simple, very like consider this, and it's very like with Trent Horn, it's kind of very like a matter of fact kind of thing where he's just putting out the facts and he's just. But something about Joe Heschmeyer, man, he just has a way of just like it's like visceral the way that he explains things, And then Jimmy Akin, he's just a robot from space. He's a futuristic cowboy space pimp, whatever you want to call him. That's just I got to talk to him for the first time recently when I was in San Diego. I was on Catholic Answers. That was an incredible story too. But I was on the air with Jimmy Akin, and it was
incredible. Like, just shut up, you go.
I got to ask him a question. And he responded to me, and he was like, hey, if you ever want to do anything, let me know, and I'd love to work with you. And I'm like, it's incredible.
Jimmy is one of the kindest men I've ever met. I met him when I applied. Well, Catholic Answers flew me down for a job offer. I thought it was an interview. It ended up being a job offer.
Yeah.
I got to meet him there, and my entire friendship since 2012 to now, just a kind person. He came to my 30th birthday party. Isn't that wild? And he brought all of his superhero shirts over for my friends because he had like 800. He just brought them. We all put on the superhero shirt. We all just hung out in San Diego. Just want to, awesome. Someone said this of him to me, and I think it's spot on. He said, when you're with Jimmy, you can tell he's someone who's trying to be good.
Trying to be holy.
Always just trying to be kind and... And he's a straight shooter, and he's courageous, and he's
yeah. Jimmy Akin is always the one name that always pops up. Like when I have personal conversations with other people, with they always say Jimmy Akin. He's that hero that just doesn't let you down. He's that guy that everyone has nothing but good things to say about.
His debate with Bart Ehrman.
Oh my gosh,
was a bloodbath.
That's another one. Thank you for reminding me. That was a great debate. That one was great. You know.
He has this way of like twisting the knife in while smiling, and I don't mean that in a you can take that the wrong way. But what I mean he's very polite as he's dismantling your.
Yeah, he's a robot cowboy space pimp from the future. That's what I'm telling you. That's exactly what he would do. I watched just this morning when I was getting ready at the hotel to come here. I watched a video that he just put out where he's responding to something James White said. And
I saw that on the Blessed Virgin.
Yes,
I haven't watched that yet, but I'm sure it's worth watching.
Yeah, it's like you watch it and it's like you're like in a class, like he's like teaching like a class on like rhetoric or a class on a argumentation on how to has the premises, and he's like a robot. He's like AI.
Yeah, whenever I'm with him, I'm like I'm too stupid to be a part of this conversation because it's like he sees. This much of the picture, and I'm looking through a keyhole. And even as I ask my questions, I can tell they're not as good as they could be. He's the guy I want to go on Joe Rogan's show. If I could choose any Catholic,
he has to be the one. He
Jimmy.
has to be the one.
Yeah.
And I know that he's exactly what Joe Rogan is looking for.
Oh my gosh.
I've said Jimmy Akin is the guest to end all guests on Joe Rogan. Like if Joe Rogan has him on, they could talk for 10 hours about everything from religion to Bigfoot to UFOs to aliens to whatever.
Yes.
And that's it. Then the Joe Rogan would never need to have another guest on. Jimmy Akin would be the guest to end all guests for Joe Rogan. He's exactly what Joe Rogan is looking for.
Oh, they would have such an amazing conversation.
It would be. There was a petition going around, I remember, for trying to get him to get on the Joe Rogan. We got to make it happen.
We got to
make it happen.
He was on my show for 6.5 hours.
I watched that one. I was just about to say, I watched the 6.5 hour show last year, and that is one of my favorite episodes of Pints with Aquinas that I've ever seen. It was one of it was just.
And then what happened, and people didn't see this bit, but after we finished that episode, we both walked down to my cigar lounge where we had an event, and he continued to speak and answer questions for about 2.5, 3 hours. And I even said when I got up there, because I was trying to be polite to Jimmy.
Yeah.
I didn't ask him ahead of time, and Jimmy didn't say keep it short, but I thought, okay, this poor bugger. So I said, hey, we just did a 6.5 hour show, so he might not be able to say. He's like, oh no, Matt, I'm happy to. All right, okay. Well, whatever you want, then, Jimmy. Here we go.
Yeah. He's a robot. He's a robot. He's a blessing that, like you said, the church sent him from the future to help us out.
Yeah, Trent. I saw that from Trent Hall. Yeah. He said he's a cyborg sent from the future to save the church.
Yeah, he's special.
Yeah,
he's special, and he's so nice to me when I interacted with him on Catholic Answers. He's great. I tweeted. I remember I was like, I said, all of these people are so impressed by AI. AI doesn't impress me. I've been listening to Jimmy Akin for over 10 years. I'm not impressed by AI. I said when AI can do what Jimmy Akin can do, then come back to me. And he retweeted. He liked it, and he retweeted. I think so.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the trip out from New Mexico.
This has been an honor. It's been like a dream. When we first started Voice of Reason, me and Jonathan, he was like,
"That's nice.
Imagine if one day you could be on Matt Fradd on Pints with Aquinas." And I was like, "Wow, that'd be."
Well, that makes you feel very uncomfortable, but I know what you mean. I'm grateful. That's very kind of you to say that. Yeah, and I'm happy to see your success. And I don't mean that in a superficial sense. I mean that you're helping souls come into the church and stay there.
Thank you. I couldn't do it without you. Whenever I talk to the people that have influenced me, and you're one of the biggest influences. I always let them know. I said, hey, there's no voice of reason without Jimmy Akin. There's no voice of reason without Michael Lofton. There's no voice of reason without Trent Horn. There's no voice of reason without Matt Fradd.
Yeah. It's nice to see that we're all... I mean, I understand that there are disagreements between us at times, and some of those disagreements are real and need to be settled, and someone's wrong. I'm open to that. Some people have unhelpful things that they say. Right? Goodness knows I've done that. Right, fair enough. I also think it's true that it's okay that one man's fight is not another's, and that we can fight on different fronts of this beach. So if there are some people trying to help people understand the Magisterium, while other people are trying to refute atheism, while other people are trying to show why sedevacantism is the wrong road to go down.
There you go. Yeah. Let everybody do what their expertise is. Let Lofton teach the Magisterium. Let Ibarra teach the papacy in the early church. let Trent Horn do pure apologetics. Well, Trent Horn can do anything.
Let Jimmy off his leash to do whatever he needs to do.
Trent can do anything. Jimmy can do anything. Those are those special guys that are jacks of all trades.
Yeah.
And let the other guys do their specialty. Let Gary Machuda talk about the canon.
Oh yeah.
Let them, and let's all be together, united, and give each other a platform so that everyone.
And
can
then I
go
think
around
what we
it.
need to do too, so a bit of a pep talk to Catholic YouTube and Twitter is, and I'm trying to get better at this. I've actually gone to confession in the past for when I've spoken negatively about a fellow Catholic.
Yeah.
And I think rightly so. I think I'm right to have done that.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to have criticisms of each other, but I think as much as we can to try to build each other up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because infighting is really ugly. Yeah, infighting is really ugly, and if there's going to be fighting, because there has to be fights, and it's great. There needs to be fights. If people are saying false things, I think we need to address them. But man, I think what I'm trying to say is it feels for many of us that we live in a very confusing time in society, in the church, and to try to give each other the benefit of the doubt as we grapple with these things.
Right. Yeah.
That sounds cliche, maybe.
I did a video just a few days ago that came out where I don't know if you saw about the George Janko controversy.
Oh yeah.
And I put out a video and I said, hey, he's new at this. Let him figure this out. Instead of trying to tear him down and attack him, let's offer a helping hand and say, hey, let's have a talk, man, so we can, you have a lot of questions. Let me answer your questions.
And I thought Ruslan put it really well.
Yep.
He's like, look, just like a Protestant going on their show and calling you an idiot, probably not going to help you be open to Protestantism.
I'm so thankful for Ruslan because he and I talk very regularly now, and I kind of go to him, and he's kind of like my sounding board, and I say, hey, Ruslan, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? Would this be effective for you guys, for Protestants? And he'll say, don't say it like this, say it like this, because we're not going to hear you if you say it like this. So he helps me. He actually helps me. He says...
Another shout out to Ruslan, okay?
Ruslan is the man.
This is not, this hasn't been public until now. He once, and I didn't know him that well. We had texted a couple of times.
Yeah.
He once posted a video about Candace's husband, who's a good mate of mine, George Farmer.
Yeah.
And there was some implicit accusation of something George believed. And I knew George didn't believe that.
Yeah.
So I wrote to George, I'm like, you don't hold this, do you? And he said, not at all. I'm like, okay, I'll talk to him. He's like, yeah, good luck. He's not going to take it down. Because it felt a bit, all of his stuff, right? All of his thumbnails, they're all very kind of dramatic to get you in.
Yeah, it's part of the game, yeah.
Anyway, to his credit, I wrote to him. He doesn't believe this. This isn't true. I've done this in the past to other people. I've reached out around the back. I'm like, hey, that was too harsh. You shouldn't be having things like that.
Yeah.
And they really didn't respond that well to me.
Yeah.
Ruslan took it down right away.
Ruslan is a man.
Yeah.
And I love this because you guys talked about me when you had him on, and I love that we're talking about him when I'm on because he's the man. Yeah. He actually wants, he wants to represent Catholicism at its very best.
Yeah.
So he's always telling, like he told George, he's like, hey man, you need to talk to Jimmy Akin, Trent Horn, Voice of Reason. Those are the guys that you should be talking to. Don't listen to all these other guys on the internet or, listen to the very best. Yeah. So Ruslan is helping us. Ruslan wants us to have a seat at the table, and he wants us to, share what our point of view and our understandings with the broader Christian community. So shout out to Ruslan. Salute. He's my brother. Ruslan is a man. One last thing. All right. Before we get
I think I can guess what it is by the shape of it. Is it an icon?
It's a bicycle. Oh.
It looks like an icon because it looks square, but maybe I'm not looking at the right thing.
Let me tell you why I'm nervous to share this with you. Because your sister, I reached out to your sister.
It's John Sr.
What?
Nah. It's an icon of John Sr.
I reached out to your sister.
Yeah.
And I told her, I sent her a picture of this and I said, you think your brother would like this? And she's like, And I was like, and she's like,
she's right, by the way.
And
whatever, even if I pretend I love it, whatever Emma said is actually how I would respond.
Exactly how you
But I'll still be grateful for whatever it is.
That's exactly what she told me.
Emma knows me very well. Yeah.
Because I sent her the picture of it, and then it took her a little while to respond, and I just went ahead and got it. And then she responded to me, and she was like, I don't know. And I was like, oh, no, I hope I didn't mess up. And she said, don't worry, I'm sure he's going to be super grateful.
I am, so I'm already grateful.
Yeah.
But am I allowed to be like, yeah, it's great? Am I allowed to do that? You won't be offended if I...
You can.
Here's why I
if
say
you don't like it, you can tell me.
The other day, I'll give you a story before you show me that. The other day, someone brought me over 2 bags of Cubans because he has a work with a fella in Cuba, and they're hand-rolled. They're not like... so he brought them to me, and he said, what are they like? And I went, they're not, they're not great, actually. And then I felt bad that I was honest, but I thought, well, what do you want? I mean, he's a good guy. He's not going to use... All right, show me that.
All right. So I got you this icon of the prophet Elijah.
Yeah, that's great. That's how I feel.
And
That's great.
She told me, she was
Thank
like,
you.
she was like, do you have any like handwritten icons instead of print?
Yeah, you're not bad,
And
Emma.
I was like,
Oh, yeah, I'll just sell a kidney.
I was like,
That's very kind.
That's what
Now, is there
here
a
you go.
reason for it? See, if you have a reason for it, I'll be more impressed.
because Elijah, he's the prophet that was, he's the prophet that was fighting against the cult of Balaam,
Yep.
right? And he's the prophet that was fearless and that he wasn't afraid to call out. He would even like make fun of like the pagan gods, right? And I feel like your platform, what you do, you remind me of the prophet Elijah.
Jeez,
and
God,
I know that might sound
mercy
kind
on
of
you.
weird, but I just, the way that I would explain it is, I feel like you're fearless. You're fearless, and you're fearless when it comes to calling out like the debauchery and the paganism that we're seeing now. I feel like of all the guys online doing their thing that just speak out against it from the Catholic group, I feel like you're just the one. Like when I think of in the culture who's actually fighting against evil in the culture, I think of you. And when I was looking at the icons, I saw Prophet Elijah, and I said, "That's the one. That's it." I wanted to get something special. I was,
It's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope
very nice of
I hope that you like it, and if not,
Yeah.
I know you'll like the book, and I hope that cigar treated you
Oh
well.
my gosh! Well, we haven't done. We're going to come back and we
gotta-
do this. All right, we got some. So what I do when I ask my local supporters and others for questions is I say keep them short and sassy. So I've not seen these ahead of time. Michael Tremblay. Well, I don't know if you want to answer that. Ask that one. It's a bit rude. Jacob says, "Why does voice face killer think so many stop taking their faith seriously, or why we stop being well catechized in the US?" Okay, what does that mean? What does voice? Does that mean anything?
That's my alter ego.
Oh, okay.
My rap alter ego. I'm Voice Face Killer. When I was with Michael Lofton, we were doing a stream because he and I are both big fans of like hip hop music from the '90s, rap music, And there's one of my favorite rappers. His name is Ghostface Killer.
Okay.
And so I just said it just in the spur of the moment. I was like, I'm Voice Face Killer.
Okay.
And it stuck. And they call me Voice Face Killer, the Pink Pope. They call me a bunch of stuff.
Why the Pink Pope?
Because me and Michael Lofton were responding to silly TikTok videos one time.
Okay, all right.
And there was a guy some guy on TikTok that was just promulgating totally false information that there's a secret pope called the Black Pope, that he really runs the show. And I was in a pink hoodie during the stream. I was like, well, I'm the Pink Pope. And then people just started calling me that.
All right. So the question is why we stop being well catechized in the US, or why so many stop taking their faith seriously. So just a small question. Surely you can sum it up in a sentence.
I think that...
That's a joke.
Yeah, I know, right? I think that what happened is that here in this country, we started to compartmentalize the faith. So we have our faith over here, and then we have other things faith over here, politics over here, our social life over here, and we try to separate them. And because they were separate, they became distinct from each other. People didn't really feel like one has to do with the other. And that was a big mistake. It's, everything else in your life comes from the faith. So you can't just be a Catholic over here on Sundays and, or on holy days of obligation, but then be a vote this way when you're, when it comes to politics, or support these candidates and then live your life here. It all has to come together. So I think it started with that. We started being Catholics in private. I think that's what it is.
Yep.
And when you're a Catholic in private, you don't feel the need to like learn the faith in order to be able to defend it in public. Because in this country, we were encouraged to keep our religion private, and I think that's where it all started.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I remember my parents even, and maybe more of that generation, would say as if it were a good thing that my faith is a private thing. And they would say as if it were a virtue.
No.
And I think what they meant by that is we're not like the Mormons who are going to come and knock on your door and annoy you.
Right.
And so I think what they were trying to say was...
We're not going to be pushy.
Yeah.
Right? But that's like saying my faith is private is like saying my marriage is private. Marriage as an institution is not a private institution. Marriage is a public institution. That's why you get married in the church. It's a sacrament that you do in public, because marriage is for the common good. It's for the public. Marriage is not a private endeavor, and the faith isn't a private endeavor either.
Yep.
The faith is supposed to be public.
Laurels of Dante asks, Alex, why did you choose to become an Eastern Catholic instead of remaining a Latin Roman Catholic?
Well, canonically, I'm still a Latin Catholic, but I practice as a Byzantine because on accident, I fell into my local Byzantine parish that I didn't even know existed until one day during the pandemic when all of the Christian churches were closed. I got anxious, so I Googled, just out of curiosity, if there were any Christian churches of any denomination that were open. And the one church that was open was a Byzantine Catholic church that I didn't even know existed in my area. So I started going there while all of the other churches were locked down. I fell in love with it, fell in love with the people. They welcomed me with open arms, and they just haven't been able to get me out ever since.
Mike Frank says, what would you do if the Cardinals elected you as the next Pope?
Oh, I've talked about this with Michael Lofton too in an episode where I thought, if I got elected Pope, it would be over for everybody. I would probably be a tyrant. So it's probably best that I don't become the Pope, but I would fix the liturgy wars.
What would you do?
Right?
How would you fix it?
What I would do is I would go to the pastor of St. Paul Catholic Church in Omaha, Nebraska, and I would say, I'm appointing you to be in charge of the liturgy in the United States, and everyone's going to do what you say. And, so the Novus Ordo would look like how it looks at his parish,
But I mean, that's one country, even if that was successful, because a lot of the Novus Ordos here look like they do everywhere else in the world. So I know you said about this lack of oversight in America, but I mean, Australia, everywhere you go, you have these sloppy liturgies.
Right, yeah.
So, all right. So you would maintain the Novus Ordo.
I would at least go back to what the rubrics called for. And maybe that pastor, whatever his name is, maybe I'd make him in charge of just everything in the West as far as the liturgy. I'd let him put his team together, of people that would, just do it right. Really what it is, I want to unite, the TLM, the Novus Ordo kind of.
Well, would you lift the motu proprio?
I would, start with that because that's obviously a stumbling block for people. So what I want to do is get rid of the unnecessary stumbling blocks
that restrict the Latin Mass.
The Latin Mass, and then I would, just start fixing the things that need to get fixed.
Yeah. You know what's difficult for me is the fact that we have different calendars. I find that hard, and we have different feast days.
With the 62 calendar and the
That's like that, and I'm not saying it's not okay. It just sometimes feels like we're part of different churches. So the readings,
right?
I don't think a dyed-in-the-wool trad would be open to this, but I'd like them at least to entertain the possibility that for the traditional Latin Mass to continue, it would need to incorporate the new calendar and the new readings.
Yes, that's exactly what I said when I was with Michael Lofton. I said I would keep the TLM then, with the option to do it in the vernacular if people wanted it in the vernacular, but you could also, Latin would be essential for certain parts. The TLM with the Novus Ordo lectionary and the Novus Ordo calendar, and I feel like that's a good way to kind of make everybody happy.
I think you'd piss everybody off. You wouldn't piss the Novus Ordo off, and
right.
you'd be open to but well, that's what's so difficult when you start identifying as trad and you really ensconce yourself in that corner. There's nothing that will actually.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I like that.
And then I would excommunicate all of the public figures that dissent from the teachings of the church. They'd all be out. Discipline the rad trads that, not excommunicate them, but discipline them and say, hey, like, I would have all of the Catholic content creators, I would say that they need to make a profession of faith on their channels and platforms. The profession of faith from Vatican II, they need to say that Vatican II was an ecumenical council, that it's authoritative, and that all of the popes from, Vatican II onward have been valid popes, and then we can just continue as normal, and you can keep sharing the traditional Catholic faith, but we got to make sure that we have these housekeeping things in order.
All right, so let's say you make this statement, and Taylor Marshall comes on and says, respectfully, Holy Father, I cannot affirm this.
Right.
What do you do as the Pope?
Then I would say, oh, well, look, if you look at this canon of the Catholic Church, you have just automatically excommunicated yourself. And I would tell them, repent. And if you don't, then I will have to ratify this automatic excommunication.
Yeah, it's interesting how with this new, say, election in the US, there's been more seriousness placed on social media influencers and podcasts because they realize, okay, this is the new game in town. People aren't listening to CNN unless they're in the dentist's office or Fox News even. So that's interesting. I wonder if we will get to a point where a pope has to start addressing the new media.
I would do it.
And probably through their own bishops, I would think, right? You wouldn't want to circumvent the bishop, but as pope, since you're pope, you'd want to speak to the bishop of my bishop to rein me in, Taylor's bishop if he needed reining in, or etc., Lofton, whoever.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I would do it. The ordinaries would do it. So you take a profession of faith of Vatican II, affirm it as a council, affirm all of the popes since then, and then you can just continue as normal, but just stop bad-mouthing the council and the popes, and don't be a TLM supremacist. Acknowledge the Novus Ordo, and don't worry, I'm going to fix the Novus Ordo too. Okay, we're going to get it all fixed up. We're going to meet everyone's needs, but we all got to play nice, and we all got to make sure that we're respecting each other, respect all the other rights, and respect the authority of the church, please.
Yeah. Yeah, something has to happen. It feels like, because we all understand how things unravel on the liberal side, right? But we don't often take seriously how things are unraveling on the conservative side. Or if you do point to it and go, this seems like it's unraveling over here, fellas, you get accused of not taking what's happening on the left seriously. And I think that's a legitimate criticism if all you're doing is attacking the conservatives.
Right, yeah.
But if you're not, then you really have to be attentive to, okay, like how is the devil getting in our camp here, making us holier than thou, etc.
That's why I would fix everything on the left first. That has to happen first. So I would ban, I would allow the Latin Mass to be, any priest would be able to do the TLM. Right? I would allow any priest to have the faculties to do that. I would excommunicate all of the politicians that are not Catholic, right? That claim to be Catholic, but they don't follow the teachings of the church. Excommunicate them. Let it be known. I would fix the liturgy first. I'd fix all of these things first. That way everyone can see that everything is getting fixed. And then I would tell the conservatives, okay, conservatives, we fixed everything and good, but now it's your turn to... Yeah. Well, you say that Vatican II is valid, and the popes have all been legitimate popes, and if you don't, you don't get to experience all of these beautiful things that we just fixed. So that's how I would do it. But you have to fix the problems on the left first.
Feel free to either slide that or throw it off. Yeah, you're fine. Whatever.
Getting animated. All this coffee's got me. Yeah. All this coffee on the empty stomach.
Leave it. Just leave it.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. I like that. Now, I think okay. So, but I think a big part of your pontificate. I love that we're just doing a deep dive into your.
I know.
Theoretical pontificate, is that it's how you act. It's not just what you implement, but how you celebrate liturgy, right? So so presumably you're celebrating ad orientem.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Absolutely. Ad orientem.
Because I know really good priests.
Yeah.
And they're just afraid, and I don't blame them for being afraid.
To try it.
They're afraid to celebrate ad orientem because they don't want to be thought of as a rabble-rouser. Yeah. They don't want to be slapped on the wrist and then suppressed, and then the good work that they're trying to do within this parish gets, Right. I think some of them are even afraid to ask permission of the bishop lest they be put in that category. So I think to have the Pope be like, no, you can celebrate without your bishop's permission.
Yep.
And I encourage you to celebrate ad orientem.
Yep.
It was clearly a mistake to face the people. We're acknowledging it.
Yep.
Even better if you get rid of the second altar and use the primary one.
Yep.
Clearly.
Exactly.
Clearly.
That's what I would do. And also, not only that, I would also have to either, discipline the people that need to be disciplined within the church, clergy. Probably remove some cardinals, make some, Bishop Barron, he's a cardinal. I'd make him a cardinal right off the bat. Bishop Barron would become a cardinal.
Would he have more influence as a cardinal?
He would.
I just don't want to remove people. How they talk about promoting people into obscurity?
Yeah.
I want Barron where he can make the most impact.
Oh, yeah. I would make him a cardinal, and he could still continue as he is, still do his thing. I would help whatever he needs for his ministry, help him.
Yeah,
he'd be the guy.
Are you afraid that you're too focused on America? Because you've said nothing about every other country in the world.
Well, I'm not too sure what's going on in the other. I'd have to figure out what's going on in the other countries first, and then I will address everybody. I promise.
No, but I know other countries get upset about America, but it's just a fact. You know how they say America gets a or coughs and everyone gets a cold, the whole world gets a cold.
Right.
It's also true in regards to influence.
Right.
It's just true. And America should stop apologizing for the influence they have on the rest of the world. When I'm in Australia talking to people, they say, I came back to the faith because of Bishop Barron, because of Father Mike Schmidt, because of Trent Horn, right?
Of course.
Praise the good Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
So I think if you did make a lot of gains in the United States of America, that would go a long way for the rest of the English-speaking world at least, and then you would know who to trust in those other countries to elevate them and to implement.
Yes.
I'd like you to be the next pope.
Thank you.
I just decided.
I would promote good people. I would give you a position. You would be like you'd be like the official spokesperson.
Could my kids come and rollerblade in the Vatican halls?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
I'd like that.
Yes.
I think that'd be a cool place to rollerblade. Not in any sacred space, you understand.
No, yeah.
Just the nice marble floors.
Yeah, of course. Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That was lovely. James says, and this is a very serious question, what's your go-to at Chipotle?
I don't go to Chipotle.
Next question. The Roman says, what is your biggest opposition, Protestants against Rome, Orthodox, or Catholics telling you don't Catholic their way? Okay, let's read that again. What is your biggest Oh, I see. So maybe the most criticism you get.
Right.
Protestants against Rome, Orthobros, or Catholics telling you don't Catholic their way?
Of those options that he gave,
Yeah. And if you have another one, feel free to.
probably would be the Protestants, but I think the biggest opposition I get is from Muslims. Yeah.
Why?
I've made some videos about Islam, and my most viewed, most watched, and most commented on videos are videos where I talk about Islam, and everyone in the comments is just tearing me to pieces. All the Muslims that,
Wow.
Yeah.
So I won't say the name, I'll tell you off air, but I had this Muslim who was, I won't say more or else I'm going to give it away, but he's left Islam and he just bought my book on the Holy Rosary.
That's beautiful.
So remind me, I want to take a photo with you after that so we can give them a shout out.
Yes.
Do you use a voice changer? Wouldn't it be funny if we actually used a voice changer on your real voice, thereby trying to expose you? Hi there, Matt.
It made me sound like Pee Wee Herman or something. Yeah.
No, he does not. This is a good question from Chaley. Yeah. What is the best argument that you've heard from a Protestant, and what is your response?
The best argument that I've heard from a Protestant for sola scriptura would be this. We want to follow what the apostles taught. We want to just be faithful. We want to match the faith of the apostles, right? That's what we want to do. Okay. We know that the scriptures, we know that those are reliably from the apostles. Everything else, we don't know if they come from the apostles. So let's ignore everything else and let's just stick to the things that we know for sure come from the apostles, and that's what's in their writings. Because we can't be sure about the other things, so let's just stick to their writings, okay?
Sounds reasonable.
It sounds so reasonable, right? So that's the best argument, but then the reason that it fails is because when you read their writings, in their writings, they say, go to the church, and the church has this authority, and the church will, if you just read my if you go and you listen to my opening statement in my debate with Dr. White, I explain why that doesn't work. So even if you have the Bible alone, from the Bible alone, you can come to the conclusion that the church has authentic authority that's definitive from the writings of the apostles alone. So I think sola scriptura is a great starting point. It's the best starting point. That's perfect. Let's do it. Let's start with sola scriptura and let's see what the scriptura actually says. And it's, we can't just have the scripture alone. We need the church too.
I love how Dr. Scott Hahn put it. The church is not an instruction manual. The Bible is not an instruction manual for a church still in shrink wrap.
Right.
Rather, the Bible presupposes a church already in existence. It's a great way to put it. Huh? Ish says, do you feel that Catholics are beginning to give up on the Latin rite and are changing towards the Eastern rites? If so, what do you think about this? Can I give you a short answer first before yours?
Yeah.
I think it's because of the abuses in the liturgy. Yeah. I think people are desirous for tradition, beauty, and reverence.
Yeah.
And, if you don't give that to them, what do you expect them to do if they have a legitimate other option?
Right.
I know that's why me and my family, we drove past like 4 Latin rite churches when we lived in north of Atlanta just to get to this one, because we desired our children to experience the reverence that they ought to have for our blessed Lord.
Yep. Absolutely, yeah. You know what I would say is the answer is yes. You definitely do see that in pockets within the church. But something that I've also noticed is that the funny thing is that the Catholics that spend a lot of time online and they're like, you know, plugged into like online Catholicism, those are the ones that always want to go to the Latin Mass, the Byzantine Rite, and all that. And then the Catholics that aren't plugged into what's going online, they are so happy, so fulfilled, and they are so holy going to the Novus Ordo. So it's kind of like, that's interesting. That's just an interesting thing that I've noticed. You know, like they don't know what's going on online. They don't know about the liturgy wars, but they are so faithful, and they follow the teachings of the church, and they love the Novus Ordo.
If I can use a crass analogy, and then maybe you temper it if it's not good. It'd be like a married man just like looking at other women who are objectively more physically attractive than his wife, or a man, or a woman looking at other men and online all the time. And then becoming like discontent
with their
You're like, well, why are you doing that? Don't do that. Love this person, and because there are objectively more beautiful liturgies, and it would be good if you had that in your town, and you may not. But if all you're doing is going online, complaining and being upset about that, you're kind of missing a big part of growing in holiness, which is just to.
And the irony about that is that if you're looking at other women on Instagram or whatever, you're not happy either, because now you're just coveting something that you don't have. So it's not doing you any good. It's better to appreciate what you do have and grow in fondness and be happy with that, because that's your best friend. That's, you know.
Yeah. And if there are things about your spouse that objectively she needs to grow in, then encourage her in that growth.
Yeah.
Same thing with your parish.
Looking at the sexy woman on Instagram, it's not going to help you with anything.
Yeah.
It's not going to help you. So why even? It's pointless.
That might be the first time in YouTube Catholic history that the trad liturgy has been likened to a sexy woman. All right. J Epic says, why do we not read or know anything of Lazarus after he was raised? I don't know. Do you?
After he was raised?
Yeah.
Well, there are some early church fathers that tell us that Lazarus actually became ordained and that he was a bishop of
come on.
In Bethany, yeah. That he was the first bishop, yeah. So we know that from the tradition, of some of the early church fathers. Yeah.
Tim Paul has a good question. He says, what has Catholic media done extraordinarily well in the past 5 to 10 years, and what has it miserably failed to do?
Well, how do you define Catholic media? Would we be a part
I would
of that?
say new media.
The new media, us?
What else is there? Like, honestly, what is
EWTN?
Honestly, what else is there? Yeah, but even EWTN is now being consumed through YouTube.
Right.
And so unless you want to talk about DVDs or even streaming services, right, like Formed, that would be something I think that's worth people's time. Mm-hmm. Hallow would be an obvious example of like just dominating the culture somehow. Hallow came out swinging. Everything, obviously everything. It's not that we don't have our own, I don't know, but Bishop Barron, I mean, Father Mike Schmitz, Bible in a Year, Ascension Presents. Right. I would say these are examples, but what would you say?
I would say the best thing it's done is that it's brought all of these devotions, the Rosary in a Year, the Bible in a Year, all of these things that have become mainstream. You know, like during the pandemic, I think the Bible in a Year podcast was the top podcast.
Yep.
You know, the Rosary in a Year podcast, I think recently was the #1 podcast for a while.
It was.
So I think that it's what it does best is it reintroduces these things that our grandmas would do, and it reintroduces it to us, the new generation, that it shows us why our grandmas were right. That's the best thing. Yeah.
Worst thing?
Worst thing is that it puts all of our dirty laundry out there, and people that are maybe a little mature will start to criticize the church as an institution, criticize the Pope, the bishops, and you know.
Yeah, rip into each other, use hyperbolic language.
Causes a lot of vitriol. Yeah.
Michael says, when is your album coming out? I need some Catholic rap from that deep voice of reason.
So I have a song that's coming out with Enoch that he's going to put out, and we're going to I think he's going to put it on an album. So I'm going to make my debut as a rap star with my man Enoch.
Okay.
I wrote the verse actually on the way here on the plane, almost all of it. So that'll be cool. And then, I'll start a new career.
He seems like a great fella. I've never met him.
He's awesome.
Mike Franks asks a question it's pejorative, so I'm not going to phrase it the way he did, but he's criticizing SSPX, and what's your opinion on SSPX?
I love him, man. I just wish that they could just come, I would love, the local SSPX parish is like, 10 minutes away from where I live, back home in Albuquerque. I wish that I could go there and just go and enjoy the Latin Mass, you know?
I mean, you can.
Yeah, I can, but I mean, like, to be, you know, for it to fulfill my obligation, to be a canonically regular, you know what I mean?
I want that to be canonically regular.
Yeah.
It would fulfill your Sunday obligation.
Well, it depends on the ordinary.
On the
The local
ordinary,
bishop would
yeah.
tell you, and I think in
I like that. I did an interview a while ago, John Solza.
he's amazing. He talk about a machine.
One of the first things he said to me in that question is, ask your bishop.
Yeah, ask
So I
your
think
bishop.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you want to go to the SSPX, ask your bishop.
ask your bishop if you can. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Joe Ward says, what is your favorite period of church history to learn about?
My favorite period to learn about, probably the pre-Nicene period, just because it's so easy because there's only a few church fathers, so you can really learn what the pre-Nicene period as well. But like, it's like asking you to pick your favorite child. The medieval church is fascinating, so fascinating.
Who's a saint you want to read more of and study if you had the time? And
A saint that I want to read more of.
yeah, like one of these church fathers that you referenced, the pre-Nicene fathers, perhaps. Is there someone you?
Well, I've read all of them. But let's see, what's a good church father that I'd like to? Any saint?
Whatever you want. Interpret it however.
That's like asking you to pick your favorite
Okay,
child.
then pre-Nicene, who would you like to read and reread and study?
Well, what's interesting is that he's not a church father, but Origen, just because of his influence. His influence was so massive that Origen would probably be the one that you get a lot out of. But I know he's not a church father.
Joe Ward says, what's your favorite period of... I've just read that. Hayden says, what are some vocal exercises I can do to get my mind to sound as... my voice to sound as deep as yours? Man, people love your voice.
Thank you.
Unless they're in Hollywood shooting a movie.
I feel like I'm getting... I know, right? I feel like I'm getting sick, so I feel like my voice is like...
It's going to go down an octave.
I feel like my voice is like really weak lately. I've been getting like sick, so I don't know. I've never done vocal exercises. I just... Probably the cigars.
Yeah. Final question is from Ish. What do you think is the future of the Eastern rites in the US and other Western countries?
I honestly think we're going to see an explosion.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see an explosion of the Eastern tradition here in the West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it.
Wow. Those are great questions.
Oh, we have one more.
One more. Okay,
from
cool,
Kyle V. How would you reconcile baptism being salvific and the Holy Spirit worrying in baptism despite the fact that there are people who are baptized with no personal connection to a relationship with Christ?
Okay.
I'm trying to understand that. On the flip side, there are people who have not been baptized with a profound... Okay, so I think this is what he's saying. How do you reconcile the fact that there are people who are baptized, but you see no kind of external evidence of the Holy Spirit's work in their life, but you see other people who love Jesus Christ, they have a voracious appetite for the Scripture, they're growing in virtue, they're overcoming sin, and maybe they have not yet been baptized.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the church tells us that we know where the Holy Spirit is, but that doesn't mean that we know where the Holy Spirit isn't. So the question is, we know that the ordinary means of salvation and the ordinary means of receiving the Holy Spirit is through baptism. So baptism is the objective way to know that you have the Holy Spirit or that you received the Holy Spirit. But if you see somebody that's baptized that isn't, practicing the faith, what that means is that person is ignoring his or her relationship with the Holy Spirit. And you could have other people that don't have that, let's say you call it like marriage. They're not married to the Holy Spirit yet, but they love the Holy Spirit. They love, love Jesus, and they're, they can be provided extraordinary grace apart from the sacrament, right? But they do have the obligation to receive the sacrament, to receive the ordinary means of grace. So the Holy Spirit is able to work outside of the sacraments extraordinarily.
Right? Because if he wasn't, how do you explain conversion?
Right, exactly.
Who or what is leading them into the fullness of truth if it isn't in some way God himself?
And St. Augustine talks about this. He says that, because the scriptures say that it is God's desire for all men to be saved. And Augustine says that even that desire to want to go to baptism, the desire to want to receive the Holy Spirit and be in communion with Jesus Christ, that desire also comes from God. So God gives us that desire, and it's called, why can't I think of the term? I think it's called, is it general grace? God gives...
Not general grace. I know what you mean. So you have
I can't think of the term.
Specific grace and...
I don't know why I think of... all the coffee and the cigars on the empty stomach got me wired. But so we all have that grace to lead us to the divine salvific grace that we get through the sacraments. Yeah.
Praise God. Dude, thanks.
No, thank you. This has been so much fun. Oh my gosh. No, thank you. The honor was all mine. And thank you to your wonderful, beautiful supporters.
I'm so glad you brought a cigar. I didn't even know you were a cigar guy. So this was so pleasant. I need to have that. I need to have Melanie, when she reaches out to people, be like, would you like a cigar? Are you open to this? Would you like a drink? Are you open to this? So I can not offend people by just lighting up a stogie.
I was I was like in my wisdom and prudence, I was like, maybe there, and Matt Fradd is a big cigar guy. Maybe he might not have any on him, so let me take some. I
didn't have any on me.
Well,
they're in my humidor at home. I didn't bring any with me. So.
There you go. The Holy Spirit was nudging me, and because I had to fulfill my dream of having a cigar with you. So
that was great. I really had a good time.
Me too. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed it.
I'm loving it.
I hope it treated you well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless you guys.